Howdy. What's up? Sunday Live, number 180. Good to see you all. Or see you in the chat anyway. You can see me. I can't see you. What's happening? Stephen Mike wants to know if anybody's ever eaten bison. Someplace I used to go that had a really good bison burger. Can't remember where. Oh, wait. I do remember. It's True Food in LA, which is Dr. Andrew Weil, I think is his name. Guy that the guy with the big beard, wrote a bunch of books on eating healthy, good things like that. They had a really good bison burger at that place. I remember. There's two, maybe more than two of them. There's one in Pasadena and there's one in Santa Monica. Might be more. I don't know. But anyway, it's good. Nice restaurant, actually. It's good. Good cocktails, too. But everything kind of on the healthy tip. Nice bison burger. All right. That's enough about that. What happened this week? I did a video for the Trainwreck. How about that? Whoa. That was fun. Trainwreck amp. Liverpool. An amp I've always wanted to play. I've always heard good things about. Never had the chance to until now. And boy, was it ever... man, terrific amp, terrific. I'm drinking tea today. I know, blasphemy. But I've had a not a great belly for going on a week now. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. But I did have coffee this morning, but I'm limiting it because it's not helping. Coffee is just rough. So it's a tea day. It's a tea kind of day. I kind of like tea. I went on tour with Classic Rock Show in the UK, and those people drink a lot of tea over there in the UK. Who would have thunk it? And I kind of got into tea, too. So I like tea, too. Not as much as coffee, but where's my garbage can? So I can get rid of this tea bag. There it is. Hold on a second here. Then we'll get back to amps. Guitars, pedals, strings, capos, tuners, modelers, tubes, noise gates, picks, crazy glue. Crazy glue? What? Saw some crazy glue. Bad sushi, says Chef Jeff. I ate sushi about a week ago. It was a Saturday night, and that is kind of when it started. It's a really, really good place I went to, too, and it was awesome. But the next day was, You ever go to the dock and it's a little frustrating, like, because you go and they're like, you tell them, listen, this is what happened. I went and I had sushi a week ago. The problem started the next day, and they kind of, we need to look at all this other stuff. And it's like, I think you need to look at the sushi. I'm pretty sure that just if we look at this empirically, and it's like, it's frustrating, right? But anyways. Okay, that's enough about my issues. Let's talk about other things. Let's talk about great stories yesterday with the Two Notes guys. I was on Tone Talk. Rig Talk's a forum. I was on Tone Talk, which is a show. Mark and Dave had me on with Guillaume and all the nice folks from Two Notes, and we were talking about stuff yesterday. So it was a good show, and we kind of got into things beyond guitar modeling and IRs and stuff. We talked about supply chain issues and things like that with building products these days and all kinds of issues. So anyway, check that out if you didn't get to see it. But Mike says that Trainwreck was so nice, obsessed with the sustain. The sustain is sweet, and as you could hear, it's not like super gained out when that's happening. It's just it's a combination of volume and then the amp just being so harmonically rich that it just takes off. Even clean with the volume rolled down on the guitar. That was probably one of the most interesting things in the video, I would say, is the response with even a clean sound. So yeah, it's just amazing sounding, really cool. Please interview the owner of the Trainwreck. We were talking about that, and then we were also talking about he would sort of prefer to maybe remain somewhat anonymous, I think. So, which of course I totally respect, so we'll see down the road, but see how it goes. But what an amazing sounding amp, really. the former owner, well, it's had a number of former owners. It's funny, you can put out a video like that, and then everybody that owned that amp kind of came out and said, I had that amp, you know, and then I sold it to so-and-so, and then I sold it to so-and-so, and then it ended up with Gene at Ultrasound in New York. And, you know, it's a small world. It's funny. The gear page, you know, really helped out with that. You know, everybody kind of is on there that is into those such things. And it's kind of cool, but it's a neat community. You know, all those folks that are into this kind of stuff. A lot of you are here now. Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. What else? What else? If you got any questions about Trainwrecks or about comments or anything like that, I'm fairly well versed, like in what's going on with those amps. I'm not an expert, but I can tell you. So if you're wondering about any of the models or, you know, what the different comment models are like, I mean, you can ask me questions. And Chris says, wow, TGP was helpful for a change. You know, we got to give the gear page folks credit. I find sometimes it can be a frustrating forum like any of them, but they've managed to maintain a degree of, you know, decorum. And it's you know, out there in the internet world, it's a relatively well-adjusted kind of place, relatively speaking, right? So, and there is a lot to learn. You know, I've asked questions on the gear page when I just can't figure out something about a piece of gear or something. You know, I think I had a question about a Boss delay once, my DD500. I was trying to find this one function, and I was like, do any of you guys know how to find this thing? And somebody chimed in pretty quick. I was like, go to this menu and you go here and you turn this thing on. And I was like, okay, you know, cool. And it's really nice that way. So, yeah, TGP isn't the Wild West thing that Harmony Central was. That's exactly right, you know. And because they've got, you know, rules about no discussing things like religion and politics and different things like that, it really keeps it clean and about guitars and amps and keeps it from devolving into crazy arguments. I mean, people still fight on there, but it's like it's G-rated compared to a lot of, you know, forums. Luke is saying, what do you think about the EV12L speaker? It's funny, we were just talking about that yesterday, like the 12Ls, maybe an underrated speaker that doesn't get enough recognition for like how many guitar tones. Like we were talking yesterday, Warren used them, Warren DeMartini, and Zach Wilde, of course, Jake E. Lee. A lot of people use those in Marshall cabinets, and you know, would make the Marshall cabinet twice as heavy as it would be with Celestians. but it was a sound, you know, and a lot of people recorded with them. And then of course they were great as like in a twin, or, you know, not great for the weight once again, but as a replacement, you know, in a Fender style amp, it's a cool sound, you know, for sure. I think that they have just a really, like, I don't know how to describe it, maybe full balance sound with very kind of rich mid-range would be the way I would describe it, you know, but not in like a greenbacky, that kind of woody way. There's none of that. It's more like this rich, full, defined, but they're not like, my memory of them, I mean, it's been a while since I played through one of the speakers, but that there's no fizz or anything like that, you know, no harsh stuff on the top end. Kind of rich mid-range is maybe the way I would describe it. Very full sounding. So there's that. I don't know. What do you guys think about them? Use them in anything? Oh, Tom's saying his old guitar teacher, Glenn, has Trainwreck. Yes, Glenn was kind of the guy on the gear page that many years ago, I mean, like going back 15 years ago, maybe more, I think turned a lot of people onto the amps and kind of educated them about, you know, what, because he's a good player and he had some cool videos way early on about those amps, and kind of, you know, helped to get it out there in the public sphere, what a Trainwreck was and and how they sound and what they do, because he could play well, you know, and his videos are really cool. I agree. So that's cool. You knew him. Once again, small world out there. Pretty cool. Alex says, I recently saw your studio tour from a couple of years ago. Could you detail a little more how your Axe, Helix, and Apollo are connected together? I have a Patchbay, so I can show you a photo, and that might be helpful. And then you'll get an idea. So here's a photo of my Patchbay. Just show you this. So see the Patchbay there on the top with the cables coming out of it. So see over there on the corner where all the cables on the top, I guess it's the top right corner, all those cables, those are the Axe and Helix and some other gear outputs. So I can take cables from there, right, from over here, and then plug them in down here. And these are the inputs for down there on the bottom for my DAW, or actually for my interface, I should say, you know, for my UA interface. So if I want to run the Axe effects, I just take the cables, the outputs, and then I run them over to the inputs of the on the Patchbay. So in other words, the patch, you know, a Patchbay like that is it's got inputs on the. It's just a kind of like, well, it gets complicated because you can make it so that the top jacks pass through to the bottom, or you can and always do, or you can make it so the top jacks pass through to the bottom only when you don't have something plugged into the bottom inputs, and that's called half normal. If it's always going through from the top to the bottom, that's called normaled inputs. If it breaks the connection, if you plug something into the bottom jacks, that's half normaled. And you can also make it so nothing passes through to the bottom. So it's just mere patch points from one thing to the other, right? So that's how I do it, because I have more inputs now where I could actually just plug everything in and leave it all plugged in, because I have 2 Apollo interfaces here. But that's not the way I set up my rig. I set it up so that I've got 8 inputs on my Apollo. I've got an Apollo X8P. That's my main thing over here. So it's got eight inputs. And so the bottom row in that picture are the 8 bottom left. Sorry, let me show you. How about explaining this good? Where is it? There it is. Okay, that bottom row over here, it's all reversed, so it's hard. All the bottom 8 first inputs over on this side of that Patchbay are 1 through 8 of my my UA Apollo X8P. Okay, and what I have going in the top row are my mic pre's, and yeah, it's basically all my mic pre's. So number 1 is the BAE. It's a summed, it's a 2-channel mic pre, but I've got a summed output on it, so it just goes to 1 input. So I could blend 2 mics coming out of that one. And then inputs 2 and 3 are my APIs. Input 3 is my 6176. That's my UA mic pre with an 1176 in it. Input 5 is the Maris 440 mic pre. Input 6 is the 580 DBX mic pre that's up in my 500 rack. And then I can't remember what's in 7, and I don't have it labeled. And 8 is actually my reactive load output. So in other words, I'm coming straight out of the SIR reactive load. And in other words, all those 8 inputs on the top row all feed the 8 inputs of the Apollo X8P in the bottom row, and they're all half normaled. So if I have nothing plugged into the bottoms, those mic pre's just feed straight through into those 8 inputs. Now, if I plug something into the bottom of the Patchbay in any one of those 1 through 8, it'll break the connection from the mic pre in the top, and now only what I've got physically plugged in there will be the thing. Does that make sense? I hope so. So if I want to use the Helix or the Axe, they're down at the end of the Patchbay, and I just take a cable from the Helix or the Axe, you know, outputs, and I run them down into the inputs of the bottom, you know, 1 through 8. I just pick one, and then and that's how I do it. Yeah, I think I missed a super chat. Another one. If you've got more specific question about anything about how I do it, just let me know. Nick says 1 amp to rule them all. Want to get down to 1 amp that covers as much as possible for when I need to feel more than the Helix. The PT, man, that's my suggestion. I mean, that's what I designed it to do. I don't want to just toot my own horn, but it's got a great clean channel that eats pedals for breakfast. And then the channels 2 and 3. I think anybody out there with one will tell you that's it. Also the 100 watt. I mean, if you just need more power, but if you want an amp that, the 15 for me is, I mean, I think I mentioned last week I used 2 in stereo for something the other day with 2 cabinets, and it was like more power than, I mean, it's friggin' loud when you run 2 of them with in stereos, and it sounds amazing. It's like great sound. So look at the PT15. honestly. You know, unless you need something, you know, if you're like, no, I'm more of a diesel kind of guy or something, you know, there's other amps, you know, that, but that's really what we designed it to do. We got another fella here, Buzz, that says, oh, wait one sec here. I'm going to miss this fella. This is Simon. I'll come back to you, Buzz. Any cool and somewhat affordable Trainwreck clone on the market? You know, I never tried the Seriatones, but it might be cool. I don't know. They're around $1,100 or $1,200 or something, so they're pretty affordable. People seem to like them when they get them. They're like, yeah, this is like one of my favorite amps and stuff. And so that's the comments I've seen this week. But I've never tried one. I'd like to try one and see if they're anywhere near, you know, would be interesting. So that's Seriatone. They kind of, you know, I sort of have mixed feelings about them, but they seem like a cool company in a way. I wish, you know, I've got no problem with them actually making a Trainwreck clone or something that's been out for 30 years, or Marshall clones. I mean, everybody does Marshall clones. It's just, there seems to be like a unwritten sort of like, what's the time span before you know, so they did copy like some Dave's amps, Dave Friedman, you know, when they put them out, and that's a little like, that's an amp that sort of, it's relatively recently showed up on the market and stuff, and maybe it's just he's a friend of mine or whatever. Like I wouldn't feel too good if they copied a PT-15 or 100, you know, and then made it for way cheaper. It's like, hey, let us like have our day in the sun for a minute, and then like 10 years from now, maybe. I don't know. You can't really do anything about it. Like there's no sort of, you know, but it's just like really like, it's just like, they do come up with some of their own designs. I mean, where they do like a, you know, like sort of a kitchen sink sort of, Jose models and things like that, like the Chupacabra and the different, you know, where they combine a bunch of, that's cool, you know, that's all fair game. But the direct copies of newer amplifiers are kind of, that's a little weird to me. I don't know. It's just a little strange. It'd be like, you know, like you come out with a record that sounds exactly like a current record that's out, which I guess people do, but I don't know. Leon says, sorry if this was asked before, did you compare the Liverpool to your Concorde? Yes, I did. And what I found, actually a lot of people have asked about that, or even a video that compares the two. They're fairly different. I would say, I mean, there's some comparisons, and the Comet does do the feedback thing, but it's a much louder, bolder EL34, much more, you know, that the Trainwreck is cathode bias too. Any cathode bias amps I've ever tried, they're always a little softer. Like there's a compression kind of thing. Sir Badger's cathode bias, it shares that characteristic with that Trainwreck, where it's a little softer sounding and they're a little smoother or something, you know, than like a Class AB, like a Marshall. It's a little more aggressive and, you know, a little different sound to me. And I don't know why that is, but so I would say that it's a little sweeter sounding or something. My Comet's a little more distorted, a little more aggressive, punchy, louder, and not as bright. The Trainwreck Liverpool had this really glassy, open, you hear it in the video, it's like a lot of top end, almost like this hi-fi quality, but it never somehow sounds fitzy or fizzy on the top. It's just clear top end, like chime or whatever you want to call it. I sort of mentioned it in the video. And that my amp sounds darker compared to that, the Concorde. Not in a bad way, it's just different, you know, different sound. Yeah. Lauren's asking about the supply issues we were mentioning in the thing yesterday. It's affecting everybody. We're, you know, doing okay with it, and it's all good, but doing things like securing chips is a tough one right now. And then there's other parts that are tough to get. You know, Dave was mentioning certain, you know, capacitors or different things can be sold out, and then you need to find like replacements, so that's a concern for everybody. But long story short, we're doing okay with it. Just kind of like Two Notes was saying yesterday, it's just more work now, I think, to like try and figure out how you're gonna do things. But it sort of is, I would say, maybe affecting choices moving forward of like, hey, what are we gonna, like, we're working on different things, like what should we focus on? Like Dave was mentioning in the video yesterday, like he's like, yeah, let's do simple amps, like just, you know, more vintage style. Like if anything digital, he was saying that's kind of been put on the back burner for them. Like, you know, be it whatever they were gonna, you know, whatever kind of products they were maybe developing that would have used a chip like that or something, you know, like what we were talking about yesterday. all that stuff it's just like, why make it tough on yourself? Let's do simpler things right now. I'd say that's a concern and a determination that everybody's kind of making. Like, well, if you can't get this stuff, why beat yourself up over it? It's like, it'll stabilize eventually, but just kind of a strange time. And Guillaume's perspective on it was great yesterday. He was basically saying, we've created this world where everything revolves around computers and phones and iPads and tablets, and so you put all these products out there in the market. Now there's this massive demand for chips, and this is affecting everything from silicon's hard to get, and it's just supply chain. So maybe make things that don't require silicon, amongst other things. Yeah. Anyone play a Z-Rec? I've never played one, actually. I'd like to try one, though. I would. If you connect monitors to your Apollo, is there no latency? So yeah, I think you were the same fellow that asked in the super chat earlier. No, there's no latency. Monitors are analog, generally speaking. Some aren't. Some feature some DSP, but generally speaking, there's no the latency is in the unit, like the Helix or the Axe effects. There's going to be a small degree of latency because you got to get your guitar into it. It gets converted to digital. That creates a little bit of latency, and then it's got to come back to analog unless you take a digital out into your inner. But even then, when you hear it, it comes. In order for it to come back and you hear it as guitar, it gets converted from digital back to analog at some point. So there's going to be a little bit of latency. But with modern interfaces and computers, it's so little that nobody cares. It's honestly like, I mean, I don't think it's an issue anymore, like a latency. I don't even feel it or notice it. I used to set buffers like back when I first started digital recording at like 256, and I probably have 10 milliseconds of latency or 12 or something. You could feel it a little bit then, for sure. At 10 milliseconds, it's like, it depends what style of music you're doing and how tight you're, if you're doing something funky, and then you feel it, like a little bit. But funky rhythmic based. I remember talking years ago to the guitar player. I actually just saw him again recently. I hadn't seen him in a long time, but the guitar player that played with Pharrell in NERD, he does a lot of tight, funky, clean stuff. And he's like, yeah, I can't get with the modelers and stuff because I can feel the latency. And for his style, I totally get, like, yeah, that would be a thing. But anyways, I don't think it's an issue, so you don't need to worry about. If you've got a good modern computer and a good fast interface, you can set the buffer to, to 64 or whatever, and you're fine. Even, it should be noted that like on something like the Universal Audio or Focusrite interface or something, they all come with their own software mixer where you can listen to just the inputs of the interface before the signal gets converted to digital. So you can open up in their mixer, their software mixer, you can open up the inputs that your Axe effects is plugged into, right? And if you've got your Axe effects plugged, into the analog inputs of, say, a Focusrite or UA or Apogee or something, and then you can listen to that input signal before it goes through the analog to digital converter, and so for minimal latency. The latency is so minimal with modern computers and modern interfaces and these devices and stuff. I don't actually do that. I listen through Logic. So in other words, the signal goes into the inputs, and then I arm a track in Logic, and then I've got those inputs open. I've got the inputs in the software mixer for my UA muted, because otherwise there would be a little bit of phase cancellation or sort of a comb filter type sound, because the input. Is this boring? The input signal is a little bit faster, because it's not going through another stage of ADD conversion. So you want to listen to the input of the software mixer for the least amount of latency. I find it so minor that I just don't do that. I mute those, and then I listen to the channel in Logic in my DAW, and and then it's coming out the ADD converter and out through the speakers, and you get a little bit more latency, but it's nothing. I mean, it's like total latency is probably 4 or 5 milliseconds or something like that, which is the equivalent of standing 3 feet from your amplifier and cabinet or whatever. It's nothing, I think for each foot, it's another millisecond of latency or something as you stand back from your amp before it hits your, so yeah, anyways. Yeah. All right. Buzz says, has no one heard of the Z-Rec? Affordable compared to the original Comet, and the Trainwrecks being made are more affordable than the original. Yeah. I don't think the Z-Rec, from what I've been able to gather, is the same as a Liverpool, though. It's an amp. I was told that it was an amp that Dr. Z kind of designed, sent to Ken. Ken looked it over, made a couple changes, and then gave it his sort of stamp of approval. But it's not the same design exactly as a Liverpool. It's supposed to be a very good sounding amplifier, though. I haven't heard it, but I don't think it's exactly the same. So, yeah. All right. Do I think that Gibson will step up their guitar amp game since they picked up Boogie? I mean, yeah, I guess, they've got that company now, and stands to reason they're going to be developing new stuff, and it might be interesting, like it might bomb, and then it also might be really good, like depending on who they have there. I mean, maybe it's a lot of the same people, but we'll say like with Mesa, they've made some good amps over the years, and it's a good company and stuff. It's like, but it could be like interesting if there was some different folks involved in design, maybe like, at that company, like so it all depends on who they get to do stuff, I would say maybe it's a lot of the same people, not knocking them or anything, but it's always interesting if there's some new ideas, like when James Brown went back to PV, or back to EVH, now, or moved to EVH for the first time, I guess, but you know what I'm saying. He's a legendary amp designer. So you get these different guys that are, involved, and I don't know what Gibson's plans are for that company, but a lot of people were like, oh no, I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, I just think Randall was getting a lot older, and he probably wanted to retire and move on, and Gibson, Gibson's in a pretty good place right now, it seems like, with the new boss, and relatively new boss at this point. And it just seems like I'm a positive thinker, so I would like to think it'll be something that is good for the company, and that there'll be some neat new designs and stuff that come out of it. We'll see. Rick is up there, my buddy Rick. Dude, you're so kind. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And you, sir, are the best. Rick is so great. I saw, Rick, that you put up a little video yesterday where you were apologizing because you had some technical issues on your live stream, and I thought that was really sweet, and it just goes a long way towards your character, and you were mentioning that your viewers deserve a good live stream. You're just such a kind guy. But anyway, I mean, thank you so much for the super chat, and we've got to do something together one of these days. I'm such a fan, and everybody that hangs with you and gets involved with you in making a video. I mean, Peter Frampton, I saw Peter Frampton a little while ago at a party. It was a kind of a summer gathering that the Clear Mountains have. Bob Clear Mountain and his wife Betty, and it's nice because we were able to do that again this year. They haven't had one for a while, and so it felt like, oh, this is great, get back together with some people. And so Peter was there, and we were talking about you, and he refers to you, as my buddy, Rick Beato, or my good friend Rick Beato. He's like, yeah, we talk all the time, and he really loves you, and I think that's awesome, because you have that effect on people. It's just like, I remember when I met you for the first time, you knocked me out, with your knowledge, and then getting to watch your videos and stuff. Man, this is like really high level, like great stuff. So anyways, we're all fans, and I just love that. One of the things that Rick did that's so brilliant, if there's anybody out there that does YouTube, is Rick makes videos that anybody can watch. So you don't even have to be a musician. Like those What Makes a Song Great videos are, if you're just a music fan, it's like watching a terrific documentary on your favorite tunes. And that's a brilliant thing. If you're getting into a channel, make something that a lot of people can watch, young people, old people, singers, guitar players, non-musicians, just music lovers. Is it brilliant? Had I thought about that when I got into YouTube, it was like a haphazard, still probably is a little bit, but like a haphazard mess of like whatever I was interested in at the time. But I didn't have some master plan about how I could how can I make the best YouTube channel? And I don't know if Rick approached it that way or not, but anyway, whether it was intentional or happenstance, Rick makes videos that anybody can watch and enjoy. So that's just really brilliant. Something to think about if you're making a YouTube channel. When I go do my clinics, I do a clinic that's kind of largely based around recording and songwriting, and then how to get your music out there via avenues like YouTube. And so the last few minutes of the clinic, I talk about YouTube and how powerful it's been for me. And I mentioned to people, like, I know this is a guitar clinic and a recording clinic, but I say, if you're a good cook, like, don't discount that, that's a bigger piece of the pie than guitar. Or if you work on cars, or if you whatever it is that you do, it's really fun these days. You can start a YouTube channel and you can reach a lot of folks that have similar interests and stuff. So think about those things when you're like, the sky's the limit, as far as like, well, I'm really good at crochet, I'm into whatever it is, I'm a golfer, I'm like a whatever you do. So anyways, thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate the super chat. Yeah, good man. I love when other folks show up here, like Rhett drops in, and it's a great community, the YouTube community. Rick, I also miss the get-togethers, that we're in Germany, and where we've got to hang and stuff. And it's like, I hope that comes back and that we can do these things again pretty soon, because those are really fun for me. The Tolman event that I attended, and the GitCon events and stuff, making like the videos that I was able to make with Rick over there. So it's just really fun. So yeah, this is bullshit. Come on, David. That's not true. I hit them all as fast as I possibly can. Let's see here. Flipper says, you've done so many Marshall in a box pedals. Oh, wait. Okay. We'll do this one first, or I'll be a liar. I'm calling that other fellow's comment bullshit. And then we'll come back to the other one. Richard says, with all the well-known issues with Les Paul nut and headstock, what single cuts have better design yet produce similar tones? Not including PRS. I was going to say PRS has got a pretty good headstock for that, for a direct. Well, one I can think of, okay, it's not a single cut, but like the Wolfgang has a direct string pull, like the Wolfgang USA Custom that has glue-in neck. It's got a direct string pull. And I remember actually being at 5150 when Eddie and Matt were talking one day about, they actually showed me like 3 different paint samples for the backs that were red, like the red stain you would see on the back of a Les Paul. And they said, pick one of these. Which one do you like? And I was like, that one. And Matt and Ed were both like, yeah, because they both picked that one too. But anyways, and they were talking about that, trying to pick the finish on the back of that model, the glue-in neck model. And then also they were mentioning the direct string pull, like the headstock's got to be like, Ed's not going to approve it if it's not a straight to the through the nut. So anyway, that's one. The Aura is amazing. Now there's only 100 of them out there, the Sir Aura. But if you look at John's headstock, he particularly, in particular, he designed it with a not as much of a back angle. It still has an angle, but and then also the relatively straight string pull in the way he does the nuts and stuff. So that guitar stays in tune awesome. Anybody else out there think of some others? If you've got a good Les Paul and the nut is cut right, you got to take it to a tech to have it done properly. Kyle makes a great point here. He says there's a silicone shortage, not silicone. Silicon shortage, not silicone. I'm going to say silicone if I want, because I like big boobs. No, I like computer chips and I like big boobs too, but I'm fine with it all. I don't know. And if there's a shortage of any of it, it's a problem, in my opinion. Okay, another super chat there. Oh, I missed a super chat from Buzz. Sorry, and Ben's here to help me because Ben's awesome and he's Canadian. What do we say? 50 plus guitars that I would like to donate to deserving youth. Do you know any organizations or groups that I could contact? I do. Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation, which is where Ed donated a bunch of guitars. It gets the guitars into the hands of students. Not sure where you're located, but that's an amazing thing. I mean, geez, that's a lot of guitars. Literally, you know, the guitars go to, you know, inner city kids at music schools or at, you know, high schools and things like music programs, I think. And so it's a great, great charity if you want to, you know, donate guitars and help people learning music. So coming back to that super chat, I got to get to here another one, but George is here as well. So we're going to do this one. You're awesome. Thanks for all your music. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I do. Okay, Flipper. You've done so many Marshall in a Box pedals. What's your fave? You just did an awesome one recently. It was really good, wasn't it? The room 40, room number 40 from Sakalis. It's hard to pick a favorite, man. I mean, I've got sort of my, like, I think the small box, the Lagrange, what are some other good ones? There was this one, here's a sleeper, the Little Brute Drive 2, which is a mini pedal from EBS, I think was the company, but Mini Brute Drive 2, you can find it. I did a video of that. That was a great sounding one, and it's a mini. These are for sort of the more plexi, you know, the straight up plexi style. If you want to talk about modded plexi, here's a great one that's coming up. This one's awesome. So sounds really good. And it'll do straight up tones too, but it's got a great boost circuit in it, and it gets dirtier than a plexi could. Okay, so, and also the original plexi tone was awesome for that. It just was picky about amps. You have to plug it into a darker amplifier, and then it sounds ripping like an AC30 normal or the dark side of a dark side. On the dark side, I think I did that last week. The dark side of a 4-input Marshall. You know, the input 2 top or bottom if you want a little more headroom. What else? What else? Other good ones. Marshall in a Box. Of course, the Revival Drive is, you know, one of the only ones that I've found that, I mean, it's even preamp. It's crazy good. It's really good. Revival Drive minis are good too, or whatever they call them, the compact, not mini. David said I was wrong about Pete Thorn on chats. Hey, no hard feelings. I love you too. It's all good. Wow, you guys are coming in hard and fast here with the super chats, and I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. We've got Andrew Paul. This will help me with my doctor visit that I had to go to yesterday, trying to figure out what's wrong with my gut. Because we all know about the medical system in this country. God, man, it's like your copay is $99, like for, you know, just a urgent care visit. I went to urgent care yesterday because my gut's been bugging me for a week. I think I ate something funny, more than you needed. That's as much as I'm gonna tell you. Don't want to get any more detailed than that. But anyways, I'm like, really $90? So that's on top of the $450 or whatever I give you a month. Oh, we got to get some imaging done, so that'll be another cha-ching. I had to pull out my credit card, I think, 4 times during the adventure. The United States. You folks up in Canada, over in Europe, you got it good. Andrew Paul says, longtime watcher, first-time contributor. Thank you so much, man, and I really appreciate it. Great seeing you on Dave's show yesterday. What do you see as the biggest hurdle for real tube amps in the futures? In the futures. Tubes or part supplies, fresh new ideas. You know, that's a great question, because the tube thing is real. I mean, that's tough. You know, political strife or whatever in Russia, or like the government decides to shut down that factory or whatever, like almost happened a number of years ago. I remember, you know, the EH or whatever, the reflector plant in Russia. It's questionable there for a little while whether, you know, it was going to continue on. They worked it out and it did, but you know, that's like a concern. And then they have a fire in China and the plant burns down. All of a sudden you can't get Chinese tubes for who knows when. They'll, you know, the 12X7s will be being made again in large quantities and all that. It's a concern, so you just never know. But it's a real issue right now, the parts thing, you know, but I don't think it's like a you know, something that's completely, you know, debilitating or stopping, you know, like Dave's, like I was saying, he's like, well, let's just make some simple amps, you know, single channel, cool vintage styles, you know, stuff like that for a while or something. ideas like that, or people will just adapt. I mean, there was a point in the 90s when Marshall switched to 5881s in all their amps because you couldn't get a good EL34 back then. But supply and demand, people came online with them again, and now there's a few good ones being made out there that are decent. So it's hard to say. The Trainwreck video I put out this week, I aim to put out videos that hopefully, I love tube amps. So part of my, my little slice of the internet, it's like I like to keep that going. And hey, this is a beautiful thing. You plug a guitar into a tube amp, you turn it up, and it does all this great shit. And it's different than just playing guitar into a modeler with headphones or something. That's still cool too in its own way, but it's a different thing. Now we've got the whole circuit of the amp, guitar, and speaker as a whole being something that's influencing the music and the sound. It's almost like a different instrument in some way. So, I like to keep that going, and I think there will always be players that appreciate that, connection, that direct connection, that kind of. It's a different style. It's like a different style of guitar playing, and then you can have the, Matt Bellamy from Muse or something with a Chaos pad on his guitar and like doing crazy stuff, and that's really cool too. And it's different, It's just like it's all valid, and if you're making good music, that's the most important thing. If at the end of the day, whatever's coming out of the speakers is something the listener enjoys and it resonates, then it's all good. So I think there's space for it all, but I don't know. We'll see. There is something about tubes though that still just, we love them, Buzz, dude, thank you. Honestly, this I had this. You guys are too kind this week. I did have kind of a unexpected expenses this week, so you're really helping me out here. It was like it was a little bit of it was one of those weeks where the way I approach those things though is always like when there's people in life that like oh my God, this happened to me, my transmission went out on my car, or it's like I can't believe this is ruining me. And this is like big part of the kind of like the living paycheck to paycheck thing many musicians do, and it's hard, but if you can at all avoid it, it's really good to avoid, because I always remember this great psychologist telling me, like the bad things are going to happen. They're going to happen. It's all in the way you deal with it. I've probably mentioned this before, but it's going to happen, and it's in the way you deal with the problems. It's not about the problems being like, the problems are coming. That's it. We're all fallible, and so if you can, create a cushion for yourself, and then, it's all about your outlook and how you deal with the problems as they come. And once again, it's like that, the road less traveled, life is hard. Okay. And then life ceases to be as hard once you accept that, or whatever he said in that book, yeah. What else? Let's see. What are you guys talking about here in the Davis says, just got my Scream Honey yesterday, and your video was really good on describing the cool harmonic thing it does. Love it. Yeah, once again, there's a pedal that kind of adds a little bit of that. Now it's the Scream Honey. It adds some Screaming Honey to your sounds. Great into a Marshall. And good stuff. Yeah. Oh, what else we got here? Some more super chats. You guys too kind. Heading down to the bottom to check them out. Oh, there's Volta, who makes this pedal. I've still got it here on my desk, and it's coming soon, I promise. And I was just talking about it. It's a very, very good pedal. Very, very good pedal. What's your experience with, I assume that's you, right? Volta? That's you. Not some other Volta. Your experience with video games and home computers from the 80s. Commodore 64. Well, the Commodore 64 was the first computer that I ever worked on, actually. And I remember I took a computer class in my school, and we learned how to, do simple coding and stuff. And when you think about it, 64K or whatever, those computers were hilarious. But, they would teach you how to make like a, and you could play Pong or whatever those games, they would teach you how to do simple stuff. So anyways, that's my experience with the Commodore 64. And I was fascinated from the outgo, with computers from the get-go, I guess is the outgo. That's not a saying. Jesus. From the get-go. And I had fun with them, you know. Back then, when I thought I was smart, I was in the gifted program. I remember they called it the gifted program, and I was in 5th grade, 6th grade, and they put me in this, like, because supposedly I was smart. And then, as Billy Gibbons said, once the guitar took over, my studies fell by the wayside. That's true. Not so gifted by high school, maybe. Oh, brother, the gifted program. Yeah, it's true. I like where we would do computer stuff, and I wrote a book. I remember they had us write a book. You could write a book on anything you want. So I wrote a book about the Beatles. It was largely plagiarized. Straight up, I'm going to just admit it. But hey, come on, I was like 10 or something. And we got to go to the bookbinders and have our books. I still have a couple copies of it. Yeah, it's true. Oh, brother. I could have gone on to be I don't know, surgeon or something, I guess, but I ended up being the rock guitar something or other. Cliff says, enough lurking on my part, time to contribute for all the good stuff. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Cliff. You're a good man. You're a good man. You guys are too kind. Thank you. And thanks, Volta, as well, for the super chat. These guys are blowing me away this week. I'm about to pull the trigger on your PT15 IR, says Javier. Can the drive channels get JTM-ish, or are they mainly more hot rod plexi? I would say so. If you turn off the bright, maybe run the treble up just a little bit higher, but turn off the bright, because the bright cap isn't like super aggressive, but it's got a teeth to it, you know, and I don't really hear that on the JTM. Well, I think you sort of mean JTM 45, right? So yeah, I would run the bright off, maybe just run the presence and the treble up a little bit then, and you can totally get there. If you turn the amp sounds great with the you know, do we call it gain? We call it gain. Turn it down to like 2 or 3, and then bring up the master, and it sounds terrific like that, you know. And you can get some really nice lower gain, you know, those mid 60s Marshally things, Marshally tones. So yeah, totally. It's a very versatile channel, really. How heavy is your signature guitar? Not very. I don't know an exact weight. And thanks again, by the way, Javier, for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Any more questions? Hit me up. I'll answer. How heavy is your signature? It's got some chambering going on, and I don't know how they do it. I've never seen it exactly, but there's a little bit of chambering going on my guitar, so it keeps it lighter on the light side. That is something we do. It just keeps it consistent. And, you know, it's not, you're not going to find it's a, I mean, it's like a nice Strat weight, you know, not like, oh, that's heavier than a Strat, even though it's mahogany. No, it's like, has a consistent, nice weight. So whatever that means for a Strat, I guess that's 8 pounds or something, maybe under. Yeah. Dylan. And Show Me That Beast in the super chats. Hopefully I'm getting all these. Jeez, you guys, amazing. Show Me That Beast. 2 questions. Why are some of the classic rock, who are some of the classic rock guitarists to study so I don't feel so stuck with my limited playing ability? Okay. And then number 2, is 100 volt the sweet spot for old Marshall circuits for the Eddie Variac thing? I think it's 90 volts, somewhere around 90 for the Eddie thing, personally. But, you know, your mileage may vary. It depends how you got the amp biased, too. So you have to bias the amplifier for the lower voltage. And once you do that, that'll change the feel and the tone a little bit. But to me, it's 90. But, yeah, to really get it, you know, you're going to want to get the bias correct for the lower voltage to do the thing. Otherwise, I find it can be a little, it's not as sweet sounding. Like you get a bit more of that cold bias kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like, is it crossover distortion, or I don't know what it is, but it's like it's a slightly different sound. It just sounds better when it's biased for 90. Classic rock guitars to study so I don't feel so stuck. You know, there might be differing opinions out there, but I would say if you haven't investigated, you know, Peter Green, or maybe how about Martin from Jethro Tull, right? I mean, there's an interesting player. Or, you know, I'm trying to think of people that might be outside of the realm of, how about Robert Fripp, you know, or you know, like that. There's some different approaches, you know. Steve Howe, Who else, guys? Gilmore is my go-to for minimalist perfection with note choice and, you know, the bends like that, you know, just beautiful. The various phases and stylings of Gary Moore. There's some good ones. George Harrison. I mean, like, you know, learn some Harrison slide for how beautiful and simple and perfect that can be. And then we've got the more usual suspects, I would say, you know. And Dylan, I'm not sure if I did this one yet, but first time I've been here for the live show. Love your playing, writing, and this channel. Rock on. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You too. Keep rocking. Busker says she just heard Dirty Town for the first time, and it's a cool track. Thanks, man. That one was really fun. I still enjoy listening to that one. A little while ago, I learned it again because I haven't played it in a long time, and then I was able to get all the way through it and actually, you know, do it justice, I think. So, you know, one of these days, get out and play a show of my own. That'll be sure to be included. I want to do more tracks like that, actually. Like, if I do another release, you know, it's simpler. You know, even though there's some layers in the middle and stuff, that sort of more trio, kind of straight up, a little bit simpler thing. You know, so, but thanks for saying. I'm really proud of that track, actually. Like, I think it holds up, and it's, you know, in a sort of Satriani meets Van Halen sort of way. I feel like it was a really fun one to cut too. I remember, you know, doing it with Matt Logg on drums and John on bass, and just cutting live as a trio, which is another part of, like, yeah, I want to do more of that, like, on the next record. That's maybe why you mentioned that song, because it's got this great live feel to it, because we cut, you know, the body of the tune. We did it as a live trio, and that's always results in really lively music, you know? So nothing like doing that. A lot of the songs on the album are a little bit more piecemeal put together, you know, like a little bit more like home studio style or whatever, where, you know, you send me your track and I get the bass from here and all that kind of thing. Some of them I did, though. Some other ones I did with, like the ones I did with Eric Aldanius and Steve Stevens playing bass, actually. You know, like Eye of Horus was done that way, and All Is Not Lost was done that way, and some different ones where I did go back and end up, you know, layering a lot of the guitars and doing a lot of overdubs and stuff on those, though. So maybe it's just the simpler thing of Dirty Town, you know, a little bit more stripped down, less overdubs, basically. Andrew says, hope you get to feeling better. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'll get there. I think I'm going to do the old juice cleanse thing this week, to be honest, which I've done a couple times before, but I just feel like I don't know. I got to really, my system is, it's volatile, put it that way. And it always has been kind of, I just got a bad, you know, that's my thing. That and my great eyes are the two things that give me the most trouble. Yeah, so might be time to just juice it for a while. You guys want to see a great movie about juicing? I know that doesn't sound like the most exciting thing, but it really is one of the coolest movies I've probably ever seen. It's called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Has anybody seen that movie? It's fascinating. It's about this guy that goes on a strict juice cleanse thing for 30 days. And, you know, he loses a lot of weight, and he ends up clearing up a problem that he needs to take a steroid for, a skin condition that just goes away. And it's really amazing. But then after that, the movie really at the end gets really interesting when another guy that he meets, that they become friends, he basically saves this guy's life. And this guy starts doing the juicing thing, and he goes like 90 days. It's unbelievable. And you see this dude transform in the movie. He's very, very unhealthy. And then you just see him. It's unbelievable, like, to see what happens to the guy. It's a very inspiring movie, actually. So that got me interested in you know, going on, like, every now and then, just, okay, we're not going to eat. You're cut off, stomach and everything else. You're on hiatus. And you just do straight up juice for, like, you know, I'm not making any medical advice right now, or, you know, I'm not a doctor, but it's a cool movie, and I'm a proponent of it. I think it's good to do every now and then, at least for my issues. It's been helpful. Anyways, Lauren says, I didn't know about the chambering in the PT Sig. Yeah, we do that. Okay, to be honest, I didn't know either. And they did it in my original one, and I was fine with it. And they said, hey, your guitar's got chambering in it, like one day. And I was like, what? Because I would have probably been like, no, I don't want to do that in my guitar. So let's find the light mahogany. But it's really hard to find that much mahogany that are really light pieces. And if you want to keep it light, so they just did it. These things happen sometimes at SUR where they do things. They're like, hey, we did this on your guitar. I'm like, oh, well, it's great. So I guess it's good. I don't have a problem with it then. But anyways, that's how the chambering thing came about. And they said, do you want to do this in your model? Like, as we're building more of them, in other words, the original prototype it was done to, and then they informed me that it had been done. And I said, well, this guitar is awesome. This is the one I fell in love with. So just make it the same. Yeah, let's do it. It makes sense. So yeah, that's how it works. Thoughts about Ernie Ball Music Man guitars? They seem really good to me. It's one guitar I've never owned, but the necks always feel, kind of unique, like some of them. But I was always a fan of the original, the Van Halen. And then I kind of like the Albert Lee ones too. They look neat, and I really like Ernie Ball as a company. I'm a string endorser, and I like Sterling a lot. He's a great guy, and he's really tight and good friends with John Sir, and so I feel like they're family. Like really, they're a really cool company. And yeah, they like nice. Everyone I picked up feels really good, and they seem like really high quality. Made in San Luis Obispo, so. Nice guitars, made in the States, good stuff. Can't say a bad thing about them, but I just don't know that much, never having owned one, Here's some super chats. Show me that beast. Wow, thank you. 2 questions. Oh, wait, I did these. I'm missing ones at the bottom. That's what it is. Did these, sorry. Tom D, thank you, good sir. Thank you. Show Me That Beast agrees. Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead is a great movie. Really great movie. Yeah, that's the movie, Brandon, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. You might be able to find it streaming somewhere. What movie? Once again, yeah, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, it's called. It's a really, really terrific, inspirational movie, I find, for it's just really cool. Yeah. I'd purchased the album and video lesson bit you'd done as part of the Guitar Nerd album. Revisiting that, still love that album. Thanks, man. Get well soon. Thank you. Try cutting out all sugar. It's the worst. I'm pretty good. It's not like I don't eat. I eat a lot of salads and a lot of organic and a lot of don't eat very much red meat anymore at all. Zero fast food for over 10 years. Like, I'm pretty good and I still have issues. So it's just like, I don't know, I think it's just my family. There's a lot of what seemed to get us was like the autoimmune kind of stuff, reactions, body inflammation to things, that, like, I don't know where that, I think it's my mom's side of the family. There's a lot of that going on. So, always battling that stuff. But, yeah. Have you been tested for Crohn's? I haven't. Specifically, I am going to speak with a doc this week about hey, is there anything I should be? It's probably just something I ate. I think honestly that's sticking with me. It was what's going on right now. But yeah. I've never been tested, but I'm going to talk to. I had a little imaging done yesterday and stuff like that, so I gotta check in with my GP and all that and say, should I be investigating this any further for certain? What's your? He's pretty good. He's like always. I didn't see him about this. I saw an urgent care doc. So anyway, too much personal information. You guys don't want to know about this stuff. I'll be fine. But I appreciate your concern. Thank you. Joe says, I have a Carvin SH550 single cut that's every bit as good as my custom Les Paul with better string pull. We were talking earlier about Les Paul style guitars that have a more straight string pull, and so that's the Carvins, I guess, pretty, the Kiesels, right? Kiesel, right? They've got do they make a Les Paul style though? They might. I don't know. I'm not sure. I am not sure. Melissa Etheridge stories. She's awesome. I mean, okay, I can tie it in with the health thing. Melissa went through about cancer, and she's cancer free for a number of years now, and she was really inspirational. One of the, I know this is, you're probably like one crazy stories or something, but I'm going to tell you more of a just kind of generally, she's so smart, and her organization consists of people, a lot of them that have been there for a long time and been, very a part of her circle. And that's really cool when you see people stick around for a long time. It says a lot. And the way that she would structure a tour, because she had been ill before, she would ramp into the tour in such a smart way, like with the pace, where we would do a few days of rehearsal. She doesn't really like to rehearse, so it was like never a lot. It was never more than 2 or 3 days, but we, even in the beginning, so we would do that and then go out on tour. We'd play a show, and then a day off, or maybe even 2 days off, and then play a show, and then another day off, and then maybe 2 shows, and then a day off, a show, a day off, 2 shows, a day off. Then you might do 3 days in a row after that, so it would be this, where she really easing in to, the stamina and stuff like that. And it was really brilliant. And she would carry, always take a catering company, a chef, her own chef on the road. And even, it's not, Melissa's not the Rolling Stones or something. So to take your own catering on the road, it's an expense, to bring people out. It'd be, the main person, and then generally an assistant. And they would go to local markets every day on the road and source food, like, organic, local, great, really good vegetables. They'd find the local farmer's market or whatever that was around that day, or at the very least a great, grocery shop or whatever, where they could go get the best ingredients. So every day the catering on tour was, like just exceptional, like really, really good, healthy food. And I loved that about that tour. You always ate really well, and it just felt like a really healthy way to tour. Both the speed going in and just the fact that her organization was so like, it was a really nice little family kind of vibe, So Melissa didn't like to rehearse. Like I said, she liked mistakes. She liked mistakes or opportunities kind of vibe, where, there was never it was just like, you laugh it off, or you go down that road and see what happens. It's really great. A lot of improv. I really had to like pace myself and get into the don't, you're going to have to play a solo in the next song too. So don't use all your ideas in this one, that kind of thing. It was really cool. So it's so great. John says, timeline on the 2 notes Dave approved cab pack. So this is something that we talked about yesterday on Tone Talk when I was on. They've approached Dave and I about doing, George Lynch recently and Phil X came out with cab packs for the 2 notes platform. So I'm going to do one, and Dave's going to do one too. And what's neat about them is that they kind of want to do unique cabinets. They've got enough, or, even though they, still do them and stuff, but, it's sort of the, V30 412s. There's a lot of those. So it's like, what have you guys got that's a little bit different? That's what we talked about. And I've got, some vintage loaded, like old G12M 75 hertz and 55 hertz and, old speakers in cool old 412. So I've got those. I've got a 412 that's open back with Celestian blues, very unique cabinet, so things like that. We'll do some unique cabinets that'll add some cool tones to the mix. Timeline, I don't know, but we're kind of looking at, relatively soon, within the next month or 2, of getting the stuff done. And then I don't know how long it takes them to put together after that, but they seem like they're pretty efficient at it. Seems like that generally from the time the stuff, maybe it'll be in a few months, because from the time it gets done until the time it's released, I would say 3-4 months, something like that. So yeah, you probably see them, towards, fall into early winter or something like that. Yeah, I'm excited to do it. So Melissa does that cruise ship thing. Ever wanted to join that? Sure. I love going on those things. I've only done one actually, but it was cool. It was fun. I'd love to play with Melissa again at some point. She's kind of the guitar player now in the band. She tours with a 4-piece, I think, and at least the last few that I've seen her do. She's got a keyboard player, a bass player, a drummer, and she's playing all the guitar. So, but I would, if she ever wants to do it again with another guitar player, I'd love to go. I miss her. I mean, I loved her. I have zero. There's nothing bad to say about that woman. You know, she's a really cool person. I consider her a friend, and the organization. You know, from the tour manager to the guy that did her makeup and wardrobe was awesome. The monitor people, had a few different people come out that I'm still friends with. And not to mention the musicians and stuff. So it was just great. Any experience with the 35-watt 2-rock amp? No. I've only played through one 2-rock. It was very nice. It was a loud, I think 100-watt, maybe the Mayer one or something similar, but it was like a loud, fendery, clean, very cool amp. I played it at LA Vintage Gear, and it was cool. Buzz says he struggled with IBS and it all went away when he went on a carnivore diet. That's really interesting. I mean, whatever works. It's different for different people. I will say sometimes when I eat meat, I feel better. I don't know. Like, I just don't like eating meat. That's the thing. I mean, sometimes I do, but it's like there is the times when I crave a steak, and then I'll eat it and then I feel good right now. That's true, but it's kind of like there's I don't know. I like animals a lot and stuff too. So it's just kind of like I have trouble with that, I'm one of those. What can you say about the red striped EVH guitar? Do you like it? Is it worth the money? It's pretty rad, I have to say. It's a lot of fun. I've always said this, that it makes me happy when I look at it, so right there, you look at it when you turn the lights on in the room, like, oh, that's just fun. That's just a piece of my youth, and it's just fun to play. It's a good guitar too. Yeah, it is. I think I highly recommend it. It's a fun rock and roll machine. And if I play Van Halen in a band, in some sort of thing, I would do it. I would use that guitar. I think because it's right. It's right for the thing. So, peace and love from Edmonton, says Keith. Thank you, good sir. My homie, what's up? Yeah. All this diet talk made me crack a beer. I'd like a beer right now. That sounds pretty good, actually, or a cider, to be honest. Wheat allergies. Yeah, I kind of have that. I already don't eat gluten. I'm done with that for probably going on 10 years now. IBS take dice. I've never heard that. Dice-tel. Melanie saying take Dice-tel. Okay, I'm gonna check that out. Never heard of it. Oh yeah. Okay, what else we got here? We got some super chats that I've probably missed. Like Roy, what's up, man? Greetings from Ireland. Hey, thank you so much. You're too kind, good sir. Good to see you. Good to see you. Tequila is probiotic. Oh man, I love tequila. I love good tequila. I do. Ever trip a breaker in your room? No, the only thing that trips breakers in this building is the AC. That happens sometimes, as far as I can remember. Your fellow Canadian rocker Lee Aaron's new album Radio On is out now. It slaps like the kids say. I want to hear that. I like Lee Aaron. She was rad. Anybody remember Lee Aaron? All you Canadians do if you're my age, but if not, you might not. Too much meat is definitely not good for you, but you need some. Well, I got friends that are pretty damn healthy that are, vegan for 20 years or more. My buddy John Button, that dude's been vegan since the 90s, I think. And he's just fine. He looks great for, he's not hurting. So, a number of friends have gone full, Sir's another one, he eats fish sometimes, but that's it. And, he's when he goes to the doc, the doc's always like, your numbers are amazing. You look like whatever you're doing, you're in great health, so it's good. Anyways. God, I remember this thing. Bob's talking about the Digitech. Remember these? The GSP 2101. I remember those. I used to have a Digitech DSP 128. That was my processor that I ran in I had a rack that was what the hell was in that rack? It was a studio preamp, and a 295 power amp, and then I had that Digitech kind of between the preamp and the power amp for, you know, effects, reverb, and delay and stuff. And that was my rig. When I first moved to LA, I brought all that crap. I don't mean it's crap gear. I just mean it was like, God, it was a lot of crap to haul around. I mean, just imagine what it costs to send that from Canada to, it was a 12 space rack with a 295 power amp. I should have just sold it in Canada and then, like, you know, DSP 128, old school. It was, but, you know, consider that it was 1990. Crazy. Yeah. Do you ever go into a music store and not have any inspiration, where you did not know what to play? I hate playing in music stores, you know, to be honest. It's like playing at NAMM. You pick up a guitar. Here, you want to play? You know, they hand it to you. Like, no, not really. I don't know. What am I going to do? That's like, you know, you're cold. You haven't, you know, and then, like, you know, and if people know who you are at all, they pull up cameras right away. And then you're just like, oh God, this is like, I don't know. But, yeah. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Gilbert, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Jeff Beck, all vegetarian. Ingve looks terrible. Wow. He's gone through his phases where he sees look healthier and a little less healthy. Our friend Ingve. He's a wild man. Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Jeff Beck, those guys all do look great. You're right. I didn't know that Jeff was vegetarian. That's interesting. I guess I didn't know that. Paul Gilbert and Steve Vai, that totally makes sense. Joe and Jeff, I didn't know that. But it makes sense too. They do look great. They look, you know, aging gracefully. That is for sure. You know, all of our heroes. What else? Everyone played a GSP 128 in those days. Everyone. Yeah, I know a lot of people had those back in the day. ADA, MP1s, you know, and GSP 128s. What about a Rocktron? That's the next thing I got, was a Rocktron Replifex, which is still a great sounding unit, I think. You know, to be honest, the Rocktron stuff was great. I know Friedman's a big fan too. Really good stuff. But it had a terrific sounding Leslie sim in it. I always remember that. That it was just really, really good. Here's a fellow that's asking about pine cabinets, lightweight gear. That could be cool. I mean, you know, there's more important things than, you know, it's got to be birch or whatever, you know. A nice, you know, pine cabinet with maybe I'm a big fan of the Celestion, what are they called? The Neo V-Type's nice. The Neo Creamback's really my favorite. Good stuff. You know, so a Creamback in a pine cabinet, you know, Neo Creamback. I mean, they're substantially lighter. Really, you know, I got no problems with those speakers. They sound terrific to me. Like a nice horn-in greenback. Loot89 says, "Oh, Tequila," up there in the super chat. I love good tequila. I can't help it. I'm not gonna deny. It's funny. We had a fun sushi dinner this week where we went out and saw some good friends, and Warren D. Martini was there, and he was talking about he really likes tequila, and he said, you know, I like to think, he said, that it looks a lot like the aloe vera plant, you know, the agave, and he goes, so there's got to be some similarity there, and aloe vera is really good for you, so therefore we all laughed. Pretty funny. Yeah, I can get with that. Yep. How do you wire a guitar with a single humbucker setup? I would do it with the single coil split on each of the humbuckers, kind of like a gem, like an Ibanez gem, where, you know, it'll do the splits. Those do split, I think, right, in position 2 and 4. So that's how I would do it. I like the splits, you know, when you go to those, because I'm a Strat fan and stuff, and so it just makes sense to me. It's funny, I didn't know this, but I guess Landau doesn't like that. He likes the humbucker and the single sound when he goes to that. You know, if he's got a humbucker in the bridge, that's what he digs. Found that interesting. I didn't know that. John Sir told me that, but yeah, I prefer the thing to split. What string gauge do you use? I use a 9.5 to 44, which you can now get from Ernie Ball. D'Addario was kind of the first to do it, but the 9.5 to 44 is called a Primo Slinky. I have a set around here I would show you. I think I do, but anyway, it's kind of a light blue pack Primo Slinky. from Ernie Ball. 9.5 to 44. I'm a big fan. I like it. I could go full 9s these days and just be fine with it too, which I might end up doing someday at some point. But we will see. Speaking of underrated mics, I own one Audio Spectrum OSM 800. Never heard of that. It says Platinum Series. Sorry, I don't know that one. But there's, it's a lot out there I haven't tried. But let's talk about that. Actually, the mic that I did a video on, we will talk about in just a second here. This week's an Audio Technica. Thank you, Patrick, for the super chat. Robert says, I want to get a simple audio interface and an easy to learn DAW for recording me guitar and my vocals. What would I recommend? Well, I'm a big Logic fan, but if you just want to get started, if you've got a Mac, if you're a Mac user, it's already got GarageBand, so you can literally start with that. Just straight up vocal and guitar. You don't need to do a lot, So it's a way to get started, So I would say if you've never done it, just start with GarageBand if you're a Mac user. If you're not, if you're a PC user, I don't know as much about you. You would be best to ask someone else about a DAW for PC that's simple and good. There's a lot of Cubase fans. That's probably, they're all pretty good, to be honest. It's like they all learned from one another in the early days, and they've all evolved now to where they're all have very similar features, and they've taken from, if one person's like, oh, the MIDI's great in this one, but the recording's better in this one, all that stuff now is kind of like, I feel like they've all evened out pretty good. As far as an interface goes, I'm a big, UA fan. I'm an Apogee fan as well. So I would look at the interfaces from Apogee, from UA, and they're going to have something that'll work for you. Even the Aero for UA, the little one, or the Apogee, they make a small Symphony desktop interfaces, I think. The Duet they make. So I'm friends with all those folks. They're great companies, and that's what I would recommend. What's your best stage gear fire story? Hamburg, Germany. Axe effects. Smoke coming out of it. Not a tube amp, an Axe effects. The console went up first, the front of house console. Luckily, this didn't happen on the gig. It happened at soundcheck. Front of house console, literally fire extinguisher. And it shot DC down the line. And this is fine now. You're not going to have this issue with modern Axe effects, but the original ones didn't have protection on the line for DC. And it literally went up in smoke and burned up the inside. So that happened. And then kind of funny, the Axe effects goes up in smoke, and then I ended up using a rented AC30. So I went from modeler to hot tube amp because of a fire, not the other way around. Usually you're like, I've got, my thing for backup, my Helix or my whatever. And this time it was the other way around. The AC30 was the backup for the fancy new gear. I don't want to put that out there that would be a common occurrence. It's not. It was this sketchy club in the Reeperbahn in Hamburg. And, we're probably I don't know, back in the day, around where the Beatles used to play and stuff. Kind of a sketchy club, pretty beat down. I remember an old board, and just something bad happened that day, and that's what happened. I remember well, anyways, that's that story. But now they've got protection on the inputs for it was the outputs, the main outs, the XLR outs on the back have protection now for in case anything would happen like that. It was, I don't really understand what happened, but I was told DC went down the line, and that caught the unit on fire. When the front of house console caught on fire. It's crazy. Yeah, neat when these things happen on the road. I remember the distributor G66, I think they're called. I believe they're in Belgium, maybe, but very close. Got in touch with them somehow within 24 hours of that happening. And I think I had to use the AC30 on that one show, and then maybe one more show. And then by the next day, within 48 hours, they had an Axe effects out to me. And they sent it with a beautiful box of chocolates. Belgian chocolate. Classy. Man. Good company. G66. Wow. I was really impressed. The Juggernaut says, just saying thanks for all you do for the guitar community. Any touring plans? Thanks, man. Hey, you guys I love you guys. I do. Touring plans, not till next year. January, February. right now, but other stuff could come up. So I'm waiting to hear about some things, but don't know yet. I'll let you know. But thank you, man. Appreciate the super chat. You guys are wow. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Too kind. Rob, appreciate what you do. Get well. Thank you, man. Thoughts on the Amptete versus the Kahayan that Tim Pierce uses? I don't know too much about that, other than I know Tim is very happy with it. And it seems to be, at least in his studio, problem free. So both really good. I think there's another one out there now too that I've got to ask Dave, because he was mentioning, this one with the remote. I'm not sure if the Kahayan one has a remote or not. I do really enjoy having this thing. It's rattling because, okay, here's the one bad thing that happened with this thing. The LED screens are glued on, and when I was going to punch the numbers, at some point or another, I would reach over and hit this thing, and they weren't glued on that well, so they ended up in the. So that's just is it like the red covering that goes over these, when the numbers light up or whatever. So I pushed them into the thing at some point with my clumsy fingers, just hitting them. So that happened. But don't use that as an indication of overall quality. This is a stupid thing that happened. This is the remote, and this allows me to easily select, the cabinet as well as the amp from my desktop, and it just does like an Ethernet connection. So that's cool. I don't know if the Kahayan thing has that. And the effects loop is also another really nice thing that I don't actually use, but great if you want to, integrate amps with like modern high gainers with effects loops or something. You want to have effects patched in on all of them. You could do that with the amp. But I've had no problems with it. I've had nothing weird happen with an amp failing or anything like that. The load, it seems to switch instantaneously, like whatever the protection is for the amp seems to be perfect, because I've never had an issue. So I just recommend the Amptete because that's the one I've had experience with, and it seems to work really well in my studio. So Prince Westerberg says not having DC protection, a decoupling cap is pretty bad, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of those things where this is a long time ago, so this is early XFX days, but I was told that that's all changed now, So if you're getting some sort of modern one, I think it's all a thing they've got covered now. So Cowtown Custom says, I'm building a new telly with an Alico 2 in the neck and Duncan 54 bridge. That's cool. Use a 250K pot. Do you mean it's a Alico 2, because that could be an Alico 2 Pro single, or do you mean that's a humbucker? If they're single coils, just go ahead and go with the 250K pot, and that 47 cap is fine, I think, that's for the tone cap, right? But if it's a humbucker in the neck, I might try and come up with some way of switching where I had a 500K pot. You know how you can have like a 500K when it's on the humbucker and then a 250 on the single? I would probably do that, because an Alico 2 is a darker sounding magnet anyway. It's a little more smoother, at least on the, I don't know what darker, if that's the right word, but smoother on the top end. So I would investigate, if it's a humbucker in the neck and single in the bridge, I would try and go 500K in the neck. And then when you switch to the bridge, it switches in, whatever, a resistor or whatever, so that you end up with 250. I'm sure a Guitar Tech could figure that out. So it just depends. What speaker cable do you like? Is there a need for Megami Gold here? I don't think that. I'm not a boutique cable guy. I'm just a good, depends on the cable length you're running. That's the main thing. If you're running like long lengths, you're going to want to use a, smaller gauge of wire, heavier wire, right? Smaller means thicker, so like the gauge I'm running all the way out to, I'm using the Sonox cable, I think it's called, and it runs all the way out to my cab in the other room, and it's very long. It's almost 100 feet, and I use 13 gauge for that. But if you're running a short, run from just the head to the cabinet, you can use, as long as it's just good quality, I would grab a cable from, if it's Belden, if it's whatever, it's just fine, and go 14 gauge or 16 gauge, doesn't really matter if it's a short run. Just when you go the longer runs, you're going to want to use the, thicker wire, smaller gauge, right? You guys and your super chats. Agave is way better. Drink tequila, not Scotch or bourbon. I think so too. Actually, that is something that I believe. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a. But I mean, it's always folks say the darker booze. You know, the Scotches and the bourbons are. They do make you feel crappier the next day, don't they? I mean, I think so. I like a nice Scotch every now and then, but it's like I can't do. If I do two at my age now, I'll feel it. You know, the next day, like too stiff. You know, like proper. You know, it's like I feel like I poisoned myself a little bit, but I don't really feel like that with tequila. I have rules about tequila, like, well, first of all, no shitty tequila, but also beyond that, if I have a margarita, generally speaking, I don't want another one. If I have a good margarita, even if it's, you know, just straight up lime juice and agave, it's a lot of the lime is acidic and the tequila is already acidic. So it's like that buggers me up. So just if I have a margarita, it'll be, and then I wanted something like one more, I'll just have a straight up really good tequila on the rocks. Generally speaking, that's perfect. You know, don't need like two or three margaritas will bugger you right up. T-Top says, did my first gig in 18 months last night. Was so good to see people out and living their lives again. Plus my new rig sounded rude. Cool. What's your rig, I wonder? What'd you get? What's your new rig? Tell us. Let's talk about it. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Lucky says, happy Sunday, mate. Happy Sunday, mate, from the UK. That was awful. Sorry about my crappy accent. Thank you. I can't wait to get back there. Miss you folks over there. And one of these days I'll get over there. How does the Aux Box compare, says Bumper, to the real thing? Is it worth getting? I really like it. I use it a lot. More actually these days than for a while. I kind of wasn't using it for a while, but I've grown, you know, quite fond of it. But you know what it did that made me use it more? I put presets on the knob. So you know how you can have like your 6, you know, and then just flip. So I went, you know, I think I would use this more if I had my dialed in greenback, my dialed in AC30, my dialed in whatever. And now I can just flip that knob and I don't even actually have to, if I'm doing that, I don't even actually have to open the app. And that makes me use it more. You know, if I've dialed in the sound, I know it's great. I've got my go-to things. Now I can just hit that thing and then just get a great sound. So it shows up on my Patchbay. I just use the analog outs on it. And it shows up on my Patchbay and I can just patch it in really quick. And I'll especially use it if I want to do a stereo room mic thing or even a mono room mic thing. But the room mics are what really sets the aux apart for me, at least in my studio. It's the device I'll go to if I want to get a, you know, a la Brian May or somebody that had a, you know, on a lead sound, like a real roomy thing going on. It's real nice for that. And I really like it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? What else we got? KHE people are talking about for amp switcher. Yeah, that might be the other one that I've heard about. I know there's a few out there now, you know. And if you want a simple one that just does 2 amps, there's always the radial too. Yeah. Okay. There's a fella recommending, that's Neil. He's saying the for interfaces. There's somebody asking about inexpensive interfaces, getting into recording. The Focusrite Claret series. Haven't tried that one, but I've tried some Focusrite interfaces. They seem pretty good too. You know, I always like the PreSonus stuff too. For, you know, but I'm a big long-time Apogee as well as UA is my, you know, my main interfaces. Big fan of these new Apogee plugins. Oh, I was going to talk about the mic too. Let me talk a little bit about this stuff. If there's any more super chats, I don't want to lose them or miss them. So let me just make sure I believe I got them all. Okay, so Apogee plugins, man, they're really good. So the Symphony channel strip plugin, I'm going to do a little video on this week. If you do any recording, God, it's nice and simple. It's got a simple 3-band EQ in it with a parametric mid and then a low and a high shelf that you can change the frequency. It's got a compressor that is like 3 controls. That's super easy. It's got a drive control that you can just turn up and add some heat to the signal that does a little bit of, you know, it's just awesome sounding, like the drive control on it. Everything from acoustic guitar to I mean, certainly on electrics, but on bass. So I've got a great bass sound going with it now, where I'm scooping a bit of mids, adding some top end, and then turning up the drive, adding a little compression, and it just pushes the bass forward in the mix. So I thought I got to make a video of this thing. It's really nice. So if you want a good, simple channel strip plugin that just seems to make everything sound great, you know, and I used it actually on, if you watched my video, segueing now into the, well, okay, a couple more plugins before I talk about the mic. The Clear Mountain Spaces, amazing sounding reverb plugin, as well as the Clear Mountains Domain, which is, Bob has a really interesting signal path running out of his console that he's used since the 80s. He's developed this ages ago for his post-wet stuff on vocals, on guitars, on anything. And what he does is he's got basically, you know, aux send lines feeding reverbs, delays, and de-essing and EQ. And so he can EQ the reverbs, he can EQ the delay, and he can also de-ess going into the delay. And that's fascinating to me because I never thought about this before, but when you de-ess going into the delay, you can use more delay, because a lot of the S's and the P's, the sibilants, and then it gets delayed and it starts coming back in the delay. If you turn up the send out to a vocal sound in the mix, that stuff ends up popping out more, and then you tend to turn the delay down because you can't get, but if you de-ess going into the delay, now the delay sits more like an analog delay or something, you know, it sits behind easier and doesn't get so sibilant in the mix, and it sounds like it's less wet in a way, but it's just as wet. It's really cool. So that's the Clear Mountains Domain plugin, is the combination of delays, reverbs, EQ, de-essing going on, and you can really, you know, and he's got presets in there for everything from, you know, the snare sound on Born in the USA to the delayed guitar on Let's Dance to, you know, Rolling Stones songs to, you know, all kinds of stuff. These great presets. The guitar solo on Run to You, he's got a his signal chain for that by Bryan Adams, you know, and I've been using that actually on some leads. I'm like, this sounds amazing. You just turn up the send and it, you know, time the delay to your track, and it sounds so good. So anyways, I'm a big fan of these Apogee plugins, are very nice, that I've been trying. Also his Clear Mountain Tricks, his teammates, yeah, really cool. It is super cool. It's really cool. The Pultex from them, amazing. And he does a video for Apogee where he talks about his Pultex setting that he uses on snare, and he goes, every mix I've ever done, this is what I do. And he basically, I think it's 5K or something, and he sets the bandwidth to super wide, and then he cranks the high end, and he's like, you're welcome. He's like, you can tell he's like sort of, you know, remiss or whatever to give away the secret, and then he does, you know, and it really sounds good on snare. I tried it, and it's like, wow, that's cool. But anyway, it's good stuff. And then I was going to mention the microphone video I did this week. If you haven't watched it, Audio Technica 4050, unbelievable mic on guitar cabs, and you got to give it a listen. Check out the video. It sounds so good. One mic, you don't, you know, no blending two mics or anything like that. Just this one microphone on a cab. So it's a video I did because Sweetwater contacted me and they said, you want to do anything like with Audio Technica, like one of, you know, one of their products, and feature it. And I was like, the 4050 microphone, that's been a long time, because I've used it on my cabs live and loved it. And I've heard other bands use it and love it. I guess it's Hetfield's mic that he uses on his guitar cabinets with Metallica. And it's, tell me it doesn't sound great. It's an awesome sounding mic. So anyways, that's another thing that I put out this week. Good sound. Good sound. Great on acoustic guitar and stuff too. Who's this? Farhand, what's up? I pre-ordered a quad Cortex. The portability, in, out, and UI is what appealed to me. What are your thoughts for this product? I really like it. Anything else you recommend regarding the usage? Not, I mean, that I can think of offhand. I mean, I really love the simplicity of it. I got it sitting right here. There it is. The quad Cortex. It's so simple. And all right, let's take a look at it for those that haven't seen. We'll turn it on. It's got a relatively long sort of warm-up cycle here, so we'll talk amongst ourselves about other things for a second while we wait for it to turn on. It takes about a minute or something like that to get going, booting up all of its rock guitar power. Best tequila. What do you guys think? I don't know. There's so many good ones out there. Don Julio 1942, Fortaleza, Casamigos is great. I sort of like Casamigos, like look no further than Casamigos, Reposado, or Anejo, or Blanco. Good stuff. I don't know. If I need to spend more. Yeah, I know. Van Boingo makes a great recommendation. Never take a sleeping pill and a laxative on the same night. That sounds like a troublesome morning. Have you ever considered those breakout boxes to send audio over Cat5? Do you guys know you can do that? There's these breakout boxes for studio long runs and stuff where you can send a bunch of balanced audio signals over a Cat5 and Ethernet cable. I was wondering like how does that work? So you got an ADD converter in it or something and it sends it digital. But I'm talking like you can do like, 200 feet runs of it's very interesting. Use those for the routes to my vocal booth. That saved me so much XLR cables to lay out every time. Is it doesn't stay analog though, does it? How can it? Or does it? Tell me, Marty. Educate me. I've always wondered. It seems like a cool thing for sure. I mean, that'd be great for guitar snakes. I mean, imagine instead of having to run a huge, long thing to and from a pedal board, what if you could do it with an Ethernet cable? That would be really cool. I mean, just the weight of a big, heavy snake, like, a 50-foot or 30-foot snake that's got 5 or 6 cables all bundled in it. They weigh a lot. Like even getting on a plane and trying to throw that in a road case with your pedal board and your amp is like, that'll put you overweight right there. Anyways, what do you think about 2-rock amps? Think about one for my next purchase. I've only played one, so I'm not an expert in the 2-rocks, but it sounded really good. It was a Fendery, kind of dumbly Fendery thing that was at LA Vintage Gear. Clooney's Tequila. I like it. That's Casamigos. What's wrong with it? It's good shit. Come on. Excuse my French. What am I missing out on here? Those things are all analog, are they? How do you do it? Like over Cat5 and it's good? It's crazy. It's pretty wild. Does your studio get really hot with all the equipment? Yes, and I have inadequate ventilation in here, so it's a little bit of an issue. I really like the Sennheiser E906 for a single mic guitar amp setup. It was the first mic that really sounded like my old Deluxe with much fuss. That's cool. I don't have a 906 or the original 609, the old ones, but a lot of people like them, and I know they're cool for placement, easy to kind of you can drape them over and all that. I'm really into the I love a 57 for what it does, but then I'm really into this 4050 these days. So right now in my cab in the other room, I got the 4050 and I got the 57. I can blend them, and I'm digging that. For a while, I was using a 421, but I'm kind of getting into this natural. You can hear it in the video if you watch the video I did for the 4050. Great big full natural, nothing hyped. Just sounds like the full range of all the guitars sound, like kind of more like the amp in the room rather than a more hyped thing that a dynamic does. Dynamics are always like somewhat, you look at the frequency response, they're always kind of crazy, so they hype in certain frequencies and stuff. Sometimes it's a cool thing for sure. But yeah, I'm just digging the tones that I'm getting out of this Audio-Technica 4050. And I've known about it for 20 years. So okay, so let's take a look at the Quad Cortex. So what do I like about it? Well, for instance, touchscreen. What do you want? Well, let's call up an amp and go here. Guitar amp. How about a Brit Plexi 100 Bright? Boom. Now I've got an amp, but I don't have a cab. So now I touch again. Cab. Guitar. How about a 412 of some sort? Let's pick a 412 Brit 60B Greenback 71. Boom. Touch. Oh, look, there's our speakers represented here with the microphones. And it pulls up a really nice little, oh, can you even see that? Shit, you probably can't see that, can you? Sorry. Pulls up a nice, there we go. Nice representation of his guitar speaker. And then you can simply grab the microphone and kind of move it around on the virtual speaker with your finger like that if you want to. Or you can adjust it with these controls right here. Position control, just like that, all on the touchscreen. Distance. Take it further away, bring it closer in. I mean, it's just, my point is, it's just so incredibly easy. You want an IR? Click here. Now you go down here, load IR. Now here's all my IRs, and I can go through them here. There's pages and pages of them. So I go through and go, oh, I want to try this, whatever. Here's a bunch of York Audio ones. York Audio Marshall 412 M25 mix 0. So now that's an IR, and I can turn this off. And now I've just got that IR on the sound. Done. Sounds good, you know. And then, oh, let's go here and add a delay. What do I want? Tape delay. Boom. Go in here. There's all the controls, you know. Second page. It's just so damn easy. You figure this stuff out without any kind of manual, you know. Get some great sounds. Now, I should mention, too, that this is somebody contacted me this week. Is a legendary guitar player. I'm not going to say who. We'll keep it on the down low, but and they want some help setting theirs up, so I'm going to go help them. But basically, this was one of the things they were interested in was multiple signal paths. So going here, input 2, I can now set up a completely separate chain here with, you know, just put a amp there, pick one. Now I can go here and set up another chain. Pretty cool. So now I can go here and add another amp. So you see what I'm doing here is I've set up like 3 different chains of things. So you could have an entire band playing through this thing, actually, like your bass player, your rhythm guitar player, your lead guitar player, as long as you got relatively, because you're using, it's called the quad Cortex because there's 4 chips in it, right? So 4 chips gives you the power to run actually 4 separate signal paths. You can use this for all manner of, like, you know, either routing 4 people through the unit and actually having your whole band playing through the damn thing, or you could use it for multiple inputs from, say, maybe you've got an acoustic pickup and an electric pickup on your guitar and you want to treat them differently. You know, if you're a solo performer, you could even have input 1 because it's got a mic pre in an XLR style. You could plug a microphone in there and treat it with some, you know, maybe reverb delay, a little compression, and then input 2 could be your electric guitar sound going through. You can do that on a Helix too, you know, with the multiple inputs, but a Helix gives you 2 paths. This one actually gives you 4. It's pretty cool, you know. I mean, like, you could literally have this thing with a guitar, bass, and vocal kind of, you know, let's say you maybe do a duo, 2 guitars and 2 vocals, you know, acoustic duo. You could hook all of that through this thing and do all your effects all the way through with, you know, on a vocal mic, 2 vocal mics and 2 guitars, or, you know, 2 vocal mics, a bass, and a guitar all in one unit. So pretty crazy, pretty neat. So a little plug for the quad Cortex there. How about all of that? How about all of that? Hit the thumbs up, folks, if you like the show. I really appreciate it. It helps spread the video far and wide, and all that good stuff. And this is a good time to bring up my sponsor, Sweetwater. They're good folks. And Sweetwater, the audio, I put a link in the Audio Technica video, the 4050 video, to Sweetwater. It'll take you to, so you can look at it there at their website if you're interested in that microphone. Put out the video yesterday. But if you need a Rocktron noise reducer or maybe some Dunlop guitar picks, you can also go to the Sweetwater link in the video description below, and it helps out my channel a little bit. And that's what I'll say about that. Okay, what else we got here? Do an episode about the Trainwreck clone remakes, Dr. Z versus Comet, for those of us who can't afford an original. I don't know how I would get a hold of, you know, if I could get a hold of, I'd like to try one of those Z-Rec amps. That would be cool. Maybe compare it, but my Comet isn't really the same. My Comet's an EL34, not cathode bias, very different amp, and similar front end, I think, but then there's a lot of differences. So, but yeah, I guess it'd be interesting, you know. Will you do a video demo of the Audio Technica 4080 ribbon? I'd love to do one if anybody's interested. You know, I could talk to, we'll see how it goes with, I made this video, like I say, for Sweetwater, because they asked me if I wanted to do something to showcase an Audio Technica product. And I said, I've loved this microphone for 20 years, so it's easy. And they said, great. And that's why we did it. But I can ask them and see if they'd like to do any more, you know, if there's interest. It's funny because, like, videos about microphones and things don't get as many views on my channel. That people don't come to me as much for, you know, recording stuff and microphones as much as they would for like a guitar pedal, I don't think. But still, I still like doing them, and it's something I'm interested in, and I think it's valid. So we'll see how Sweetwater feels. But I'd love to try that mic, and it's supposed to be good, right? The 4080. I know they've got a 4060 is a tube mic too, right? Some different models I haven't tried. Here's my thinking about Audio Technica. You guys tell me what you think about this. AKG, right? They had the C12, and the C12 became a legendary vocal mic. Then they brought out the C12A, which looks like another microphone that then they brought out later called the 414. Everybody knows the 414. C12A really resembled the 414. C12A was kind of a legendary mic in its own right, really cool mic, that small body and stuff like that, you know. And then the 414 is like a sort of a, I guess, a fat version of a C12A, and maybe with some other changes. But anyways, my point, they had their classic mic, right? Back in the day, the C12, it's a legendary thing, you know, it's legendary. Neumann, many legendary mics, you know, M49s, U47s, you know, FET 47s, then the U67, U87, all these microphones, studio legends, you know. So they've got a reputation. When Neumann brings out a mic, a lot of people pay attention. You know, even, you know, Sony had the C800, Telefunken, of course, the EBMM 251, legendary tube mics, you know. So these names and these legendary mics, they go a long way towards, you know, oh yeah, of course, that company, microphones, of course. Audio Technica, great company that makes these killer microphones, but they maybe never had their legendary C12 or whatever. So it's a tougher thing, you know, to get people to pay attention, I think, even if some of them are just amazing sounding, which I think the 4050 is. I think it's amazing sounding mic. A lot of people chimed in the comments and said, oh, the 4047 is even better. I've heard the 4047 is really good, and I haven't actually had a chance to try that one. The old 4033 was kind of like the little brother to the 4050. A lot of people got that back in the day. A lot of people commented they think it's expensive. $700. So much money. When that mic came out, I think it was $700. That's the 4050. None of us thought that was expensive, because the U47 or U87 is like was $3,000 or $3,500 or whatever the hell they are. You know, super expensive in comparison. Neumann came out with their inexpensive mic around a similar time as the TLM 103. Transformerless little large diaphragm mic, TLM 103, $900 or $1,000 or $1,100. It's like, oh, it's affordable, $1,000. Okay, so then what happens over the last 15 years is the race to the bottom, right? You had all these companies come out with like MXL and, you know, SE mics, which I like, but, you know, they're inexpensive mics made in China, right? And the idea of what was expensive and what was mid-price and stuff completely went out the window, because now you've got the market flooded. Rode is another one that, you know, Australian company makes the mics in China, right? And, you know, all these microphones all of a sudden for $100 to $300, you know, the market just becomes crowded with these inexpensive microphones that are made in China, right? Well, when the 4050 came, it's a Japanese made microphone. It came out in 25 years ago, you know, in the mid 90s. We didn't think it was expensive at $700. Now, a $699, you know, AKG 414, long the kind of entry-level professional mic, seen as the entry-level professional large diaphragm mic, legendary mic, right? I'm just kind of like, I'm not that crazy about a 414. I never was. You know, they're okay. They sounded kind of a little cold and like a little dry to me. Does that make sense? A little dry, a little bit. Top end's kind of like they're okay. You know, in a pinch, you can use them on anything. You can use them on a guitar cab. You can use them on acoustic guitars, vocals, overheads. Really nice on toms. I really like actually that mic on, like, if you use them kind of just over the toms, you get a beautiful sound. But was never a really big 414 fan. To me, the 4050 eats the 414 for breakfast and lunch and all day long, and it's $100 less. I've always thought that. I mean, since, you know, the 90s, since they came out. And then a lot of people just saying, oh, it's so expensive, you know. Well, expensive compared to what? Like a U87 or a 414, or, you know, it's not. It's like less, like substantially less. So I just think like Audio Technica maybe never had the, because people don't really question like a Neumann. U87, oh, yeah, it's a lot of money. It's U87, you know. Oh, it's Neumann, you know, of course, you know. or whatever, right? AKG. Oh, it's 414, of course. It's made in Austria, or wherever the hell they're made, right? Austrian company, right? Of course, it's an AKG 414. That's just how much it costs, But Audio Technica, oh, it's expensive, No, it's not. Rant. There you go. There you go. Yeah, but what about a second breakfast? It'll eat it for second breakfast too, all day long. Telling you. I'm telling you. Ever been to Chicago Music Exchange? Great store. Really cool store. Yeah, anytime in Chicago, generally in the last, number of years, I visit. Beautiful music shop for sure. I believe they're a Sur dealer now as well for quite a while now, maybe. Yeah. What else we got here? What? Love to see a sound test using a mic showing a difference of unplugged Strat sound with and without its backplate. That sounds a little nerdy for me. I love Eric though. Come on. With and without its backplate. Oh, and unplugged. Well, you probably hear that because the springs vibrate. I thought, unplugged. I see. But once you plug it into an amp, are we going to hear that? I don't know. My old Strat doesn't have a backplate on it. I think I have the backplate, but I never put it on. I bought the guitar like 14 years ago. I think it's in the case, the original backplate for the guitar. I just never put it on. What about the 2050? Half the price. Never tried it, so I don't know. 4033 is a great mic for the money. Works on everything. Yeah, I never had one of those, but people at the time, it was a really common, like in the 90s. That was like I say, there weren't all these other mics. Like there wasn't nothing out there that was from China at that point when anybody was buying. So the 4033 was a highly regarded mic that was probably $400 or something, maybe $300. It was quite a bit less than the 4050. So cheers from Greece. What's up over there? How you doing? Good day. Which vocal mic would you recommend? Full frequency feedback rejection for live vocals. What's the Shure condenser that is a handheld? Those are pretty good. You see them, and they're wireless too sometimes. I not remember the name of it. I know my friend Al, who's a great live sound guy, does sound for the band 3 Days Grace now, Canadian, kind of hard rock metal band. When he was doing sound for Five for Fighting, which is a band I toured with for a while, he really liked these. I believe it was a Neumann. That was a handheld. They make handheld, condensers, but they're, he loved the way they sounded. He did sound for Prince too. This guy knows what he's talking about. So it was some sort of Neumann handheld, but I can't remember. I don't think they're inexpensive. I think they're, but then handheld wireless thing, Neumann. But the Shure, what is the Shure called? They make a handheld that's similar. Whenever you use one of those handheld, like we're talking full frequency and all that, and feedback rejection. If it's a condenser and it's they tend to have a cardioid, really tight or hypercardioid pickup pattern, and work pretty well. Telefunken M80, that's one that that I hear people talk about too. So. Braxall says, I hope I am not muted. I do not think I did anything wrong. What were you talking about? I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Did you say something that I that I'm supposed to respond to? I'm sorry if I missed you. You're not muted, and we love you here. So don't everybody support Braxall. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry, I've just been blabbing and not looking at the chat enough. I'll try and be better here. Ian says Braxall has a question for you. Okay, sorry, ask one more time. Sorry. I need to look at the questions more. Robert Valdez says, which vocal mic would you... Oh, that's the one I just did. Sorry. Okay, what's Braxall's question? There it is. You are not muted, my friend. You're right there up on the screen. Loud and proud. I have a nice old Marshall cab from the 70s. I have black backs and green backs, but I can't crank them up in my house when I capture my old Marshall. Use the aux or two notes. Advise. Do you still want to have some fun with your cabinet? Would be my question, because there's a couple different things you could do. You know, you might really appreciate getting a power station, which is the unit from Fryette, which, you know, you could play through your cabinet then at super low volume, and or mid volume, whatever, you know, and enjoy your cabinet still. But it's also got a line out on it that you could take into your computer and then do the IRs in a plug-in in your computer. So consider that you know, that's a device. You can kind of do that with the aux too, but I just prefer the attenuation from, it's really a load reamp, but from the power station. So in other words, it doesn't have any built-in speaker simulation of its own. You would need to do that in a plugin in your computer, but that's not hard to do, really. And that would be a way that you could have your cake and eat it, to play through your cabinet at a nice low. I'm talking this volume, you know, and you could turn it all the way down and still have some fun with your old cool Marshall cabinet. And then also, if you don't want to do that, just use it as a load and take the line out in your computer and do this speaker sim in your computer. Now, if you want to use the aux, you could kind of do that with the aux too. You can use the attenuator. I just find it's more of a resistive sounding attenuator, you know, where it kind of does, you know, the mid-rangey thing that resistive attenuators do. But the load in it is excellent, and you can the load is reactive. It's kind of confusing because it's I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think the attenuator portion of it is reactive. I think it's resistive when it's sending on sound to a speaker cabinet. But if you just use it as a load, it has a very similar load to the two notes units in it. Sounds good. So what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Aux two notes, Sir reactive load is another great one. You can of course pick. Depends on how much money you want to spend and what you're trying to do. Hollywood Actress is asking about EMGs. That guitar is very close to finished, I think. So pretty soon I will have a silver Sir Classic with EMGs in it. I'll give it a try here. And I'll also have my other Sir, my red T, with the Fishman Fluence humbuckers in it that are sealed, fully sealed. I'm going to try those for super quiet sounds. More soon, within a month, I think those guitars will be around here. And yeah. Okay, moving down to the bottom of the chat. Let's see here. Ordered a Hohner SE harp mic. Cool. Gonna try some harmonica through my Tweed Deluxe. Thanks for the pointer a couple weeks ago. I'll let you know how it sounds. I bet it'll be ripping. I hope you enjoy. I do. Let's see. Sir reactive load box. Yeah, the Sir reactive load will work great for taking your Marshall down to line level and then just straight into your computer using the built-in IRs. Easy peasy. Simple. You know? Simple. Do you think grabbing an in-stock Boogie before they start getting made under Gibson is a good investment? I just don't see that them being owned by Gibson is going to affect. I don't see how that's a bad thing. Honestly, I don't. But when I heard it, I was like, oh, okay. Gibson's, you know, they're not trying to screw things up. They're trying to rehab their image. I mean, for the last number of years now, and I think they've done a pretty good job, to be honest. You know, so I don't think they're going to be interested in screwing up the Mesa Boogie legacy or whatever. You know, they're going to want to continue it and hopefully continue in maybe even a smarter path or whatever. And you know, yeah. How well does the power station work as a power amp? Very well. You know, you can use it as a tube power amp if you want to, and you know, with a preamp, and it sounds really good. I don't know if it's got a ton of character, like, you know, or not, but you know, it's not like Fryette's not known for their power amps, right? The best, if you were going to go get a tube power amp for a preamp these days, I would recommend Fryette, the 252 or whatever. They still, you know, they've got now a single rack space one. I just don't know exactly what the models are called, and then the dual rack space one. But you know, recommend. A little while ago, George Lynch asked me because he's putting together a little rack rig, and he's always trying different things. He said, what power amp should I get? And I said, get a Fryette. You know, they're the ones. They're the one of the only companies out there making a tube power amp that you know, that's still, you know, and it's Stevie and he's doing it and stuff. He knows what he's doing with that stuff. They were always good. So probably the best, you know, standalone tube power amps over Boogie and everything, I think. So Moon says, hi. What's up? Hi, Pete. I'm Bill. Hi, Bill. I'm Pete. What's happening? SM87. Is that the mic I was thinking of? I think that might be the one. Handheld, you know, a vocal mic that's a condenser that's real full frequency and loud. SM87. Whoops, I went to SM67 because that's how. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. The SM87. That's kind of a classic live, you know, full frequency, like real, you know, like you notice it if you use in-ears or something, especially. It's like, well, this sounds more like a studio mic in your, you know, rather than a 58 or whatever, you know. So when you said full frequency live vocal mic, SM87, much less money than a Beta 87, yeah. And then there's the Neumann ones, you know, that I was mentioning. If you want to go really crazy money and more fancy, Telefunken M80, that's another one. How much are those? I just wondered that. Telefunken M80, it's going to be more. It's going to be a lot, but it's going to be, oh no, same price actually, $249. Is it a condenser though? It's a dynamic. It's a dynamic. I believe an 87 is a condenser mic. I do believe the SM87A hypercardioid condenser handheld microphone. So it's a different animal, you know. They say at Sweetwater, if you're really desiring great nuance, higher quality sound than the rusty old mics at your local venue. The ones that smell terrible. The SM87A, Beta 87A is a great fit. Crystal clear sound. Super cardioid pickup pattern is absolutely stellar at feedback rejection. I like those mics. I've used them on different things over the years. Many times, like you'll do a TV show or something like that, and they'll have them. You know, there'll be you know, they just always sound like really like more like a studio mic. So, what else have we got here? Hi, Pete. I'm sweating. It's hot out there in Phoenix. Is that where you are? I think that's what that means. PDX. Oh, Brian from Avenue Guitars has sadly passed. Remember him? I do remember him. Yeah, I do. He was a really, really good guy. And that was a great shop. That's too bad. I haven't seen him for a long, long time, number of years. I remember, I don't think he was well. This is a store in my hometown. Sorry, guys. Store in my hometown. Great store called Avenue Guitars. Great boutique kind of pedals shop and nice acoustics. And they were a Fender custom shop dealer, Gibson custom shop, PRS. They always had a really great selection of guitars. Not a big store, but like really great music store in my hometown. So that's too bad. Sorry to hear that. Brett says, would using IRs with the tube amp be a good way to see what kind of speakers you like? IRs with a tube amp. I think basically not using IRs. Oh, I see what you mean. Like use a tube amp and load it down and then listen to the IRs. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like that's how I had my sort of first exposure to old blackbacks as opposed to old Pulsonic cone greenbacks. And I kind of like the blackbacks because they're like a little more aggressive or something. The G12M 55 hertz speaker was the bass cone greenback, kind of a rare speaker. The Ownhammer package that, you know, was like a Marshall cabinet with greenbacks and blackbacks and stuff. That guy owns 1 million speakers, Kevin from Ownhammer. The bass cone one was, if you listen to like that song, the Groomed Noodler, that I did years ago, you know, and it's like the Sir SL67 was kind of a demo for that, really. But Sir SL67 into I think the reactive load is what I used, and then I used that Ownhammer G12M 55 hertz. His, you know, one of his mixes of different mics or something. I think I used, and I always just really liked the sound of that speaker. So you know, in IR form, and so now I bought one. You know, I have it in a cabinet now, and it's pretty cool. You know, so yeah, I do. Long story short, it's good. It's a good way to check out different speakers and stuff. And yeah, what do we got here? I'm still a bit Thorn. I see what you did there. Between the PT15IR and the new Rev that has the 2-note stuff built in. But that is full size though. The Sur is smaller and lighter. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of the amp that I designed, you know. You know, these are great options. Do you want the Infinity or do you want the Lexus? You know, got to look at it and decide. I mean, I love the way that John tunes things in, and his you know, the way that we did it. You know, obviously, I mean, me sitting there and going a little less bass or a little more. Let's change the value of that bright cap. So I like my amp because I did all that. It's gonna be exactly what I want to hear. You know. But yeah, it's nice. We've got options out there these days for sure. You know, different things. So. Can we play metal with a fuzz? What kind of metal? It's all these different genres. I mean, I definitely think that, you know, if it's, do we consider Fu Manchu metal? Bands from the desert. Certain fuzzes are more distortion than, you know, yeah, Sabbath with a fuzz. I mean, Sabbath, I think, was a range master technically, but it could get pretty fuzzy for sure, you know. Yeah, I mean, sure, you can play whatever you want, man. There's no rules. If it sounds good, you make a new kind of metal. Call it fuzz metal. Thanks for the recommendation of the Celestian Gold 10-inch replacement in Princeton 65. Sounds great. Have some tea money. Tea money this week. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm drinking tea this week because I was, well, we don't want to get into that, but I'm having belly issues this week. So I was taking it easy on the coffee because it's just kind of a little bit like when you're not feeling good down there, it's a little like pouring gasoline into your belly. Yeah. Stoner metal needs a fuzz. I agree. Think about adding a second pedal board to run through the loop for my time-based effects. Is it worth the trouble? I mean, I think it's pretty rad. You know, I like having you might want to consolidate it at some point all down to one board, but I do enjoy having at least something time-based, you know. I mean, you know, these days it's like you could just use something like this for that. It would be overkill, but it would be great. You know, you could also use an HX effects from line 6 for that stuff in the loop only. Of your amp. You could use a 4 cable too and put your pedals in front and use that. I've seen there was a video that oh, I guess it wasn't an amp based rig, but Larkin Poe, their guitar player, she had a new board built by XTS in Nashville. She's using the HX effects for the time based stuff and then some pedals for distortion and stuff. And then she actually has a Strymon Iridium on there for amp stuff, but kind of a similar idea where, you know, the HX effects is for the time based stuff. So you know, you don't necessarily need separate reverb, delay, whatever pedals. You know, you could get like one that kind of does it all, you know, for the time-based stuff. That's, by the way, that's what Steve Stevens does too right now. And his rig is using HX effects on his smaller rig. I don't know about the big idle rig. I don't think so. But for a rig he had that was pedal board based, he had 2 amps and he was running the HX effects post in the loops and using it for just the time-based stuff. So that's another way to do it. You know, I'm just thinking rather than building another entire pedal board, you know, for like with different pedals and stuff, you could just have one box that maybe that's a little neater. Yeah. Larkin Power, great, says Andre. Yeah, and XTS has great custom stuff. It looks like they do. That video was a nice kind of little advertisement for them, I thought, because I know they make great pedals, but looks like their shop, the guys working in there seem to know what they're doing, and looks very, like they built some nice stuff. So it's cool. It's a good video. It's a Rhett Scholl video. You can see it on his dealio. KMS 105 from Neumann. Is that the mic I was thinking of? KMS 105 might very well be. Let me take a look. Yeah, it could be. Supercardioid vocal condenser. That's probably it. Not 100% sure, but my friend Al was saying that he was using them with, it looks like $760. It's expensive, but Neumann stuff's expensive, just how it is, relatively speaking. Good stuff, though. Good stuff. We like Neumann. Not sure how I feel about Rhett. Rhett's a great guy, man. He makes great videos. I really enjoy his videos. I've learned from watching them. Like they even made that nice video with Rick Beato on Rick, who was here earlier. I wonder if he's still here. On Orange Amps that I really enjoyed. He does nice work. And he's a very nice guy, and he's a pro guitar player. He gets up there and does stuff. He's a younger guy, but he's I don't know, man. But he makes great YouTube videos, and he's a sweet dude. Steve Stevens is massively underrated. I talk about that all the time. He really is. Billy Idol. The sound of Billy Idol is a duo. It's Steve's influence in writing and help with the sonics and the choices that really make. Because otherwise, Billy's awesome, but he's the straight up punk rocker of the elements, which is a huge element of that sound, right? The textural elements plus that straight up rock guitar thing, but also textural, and then also Steve's a hardcore prog fan, and so those things bleeding in is what makes the Billy Idol chemistry so special. It's truly new wave, like in a way, but on the punk, like it's a broad term, but that sound was the two of them, and those unique. When we think about White Wedding or just it's also the things that you don't. When I hear Eyes Without a Face, like there is so much Steve Stevens in that song, even before the guitar comes in, the heavy guitar, the sound of that is we're talking about a 50-50 split, in my opinion, between Billy and Steve. So we got to give him his due. He's a wonderful guy. Do you know about harmonic series content as it relates to Marshall amps? They seem to be the model for rock tone. I don't really think about it like, as a certain harmonics or something like that. To me, it's the design of the amp, like the whatever long tail phase inverter, and the way that where the EQ is in the circuit and all that, and the way it all just contributed to a certain sound that was probably largely just kind of like a happy accident. It all goes back to the Tweed Bassman, I think, and the old RCA 2-book circuits and stuff like that. But it just kind of like they ran with a certain design, and then when you turned it up, it did a certain thing that was really cool. And like I say, probably largely happy accident. And then they just kind of tuned that over the years. And it wasn't long before they made it more aggressive and even louder. And, when we think about the progression from JTM 45 to Marshall Major 200, that's only like, 6-7 years. So rock just, got loud and aggressive and crazy, and they were just there for it. And just, all right, we can make a bigger one, a louder one, and, JTM 45 100, and then let's solid state rectify them. Let's, do this, do that, like make it even punchier and louder. What's the most amp-like pedal you've ever played? Probably the Revival Drive, the big one, the original one, because it's got that ghosting control in it that really does something that almost no other pedal I've ever played does, adding the ghost notes thing. That Trainwreck that I had here last week ghosted like crazy too. The ghost notes thing is where you get that layer of another note under a note. It really happens on the G string, sometimes on the B, but when you play up high around the 12th fret and you hear this other pitch below, and it's a filtering thing. You can filter that out of amps, but it's actually cool and part of the magic of old amps, so you don't want to do that, generally speaking, to a point. If it's crazy, it's too much, you know, but like old AC30s have it, and early Marshalls have it. And anyway, so the Revival Drive has a ghost notes, simulates ghost notes, and it's bitchin'. It's bitchin'. Caitlin Bread Sab Pedal is a Laney Supergroup preamp with a Rangemaster clone. Really? That sounds cool. Never heard of that. Caitlin Bread. I want to take a look at that. A Supergroup preamp with the Bread Sabbath. Never heard it. Love to give that a try. I missed out on an old Supergroup. It was a 100-watt Supergroup, originally at 68 or something, and it sounded unbelievable. It was at a local music store, same place where I got my old 335, where I used to work for a minute, actually. And they had this Supergroup there. It was the early 2000s, and I went down with the money. It was $850, I think. And I went in with the cash, and they'd already sold it. Like an hour earlier, some other guy came in and bought it. Otherwise, I would probably still own that amp. And that would have been my first kind of old, cool, crazy, old, loud, bitchin'. It sounded like what I thought a Plexi should be, you know. It was like ferocious sounding and just killer. Yeah, I just missed out on that one. It was one that got away. So, concert started again. Are you ready to play out again? Yes. Deshaun, thank you for the super chat. I'm ready. Like I say, I got a couple irons in the fire, and we'll see what it pans out and what doesn't, but I can't wait to get out and play. I got to do something. Going a little bit crazy, you know, just I love being in this room, but I miss touring and I miss travel and I miss everything. You know, certainly miss being on stage. And, you know, there's an element of like when I'm doing a job like that, touring and stuff, I just know how to do it. And I feel very at home doing it. And it makes me feel good. It makes me happy, you know, just venues and pulling in, being on the bus and hopping off, going inside, you know, gear. There's my rigs all set up. Here's my guitar, plug in, let's play a few songs. Essentially, I'm just very comfortable doing all that stuff, and I miss it. So can't wait. Gotta get back and do it. Thank you for the super chat. How about the newish Royer R10 versus the 4050? Well, very different. Ribbon versus condenser. One's going to be it's going to be darker, the ribbon. It's going to be very natural and warm. Whereas the condenser is very full sounding from top to bottom. All the high frequencies are there, out to 20K. Royer is going to roll off more on the top end, which can be nice, depending on what you want, you know. So a ribbon's a different sound to me. For me, it's like somebody was mentioning on the thread or the video that I posted in the comments section. They said James Hetfield's used it forever, the 4050. That makes sense to me for metal guitar. And I remember meeting Michael Wagner years ago, and he told me that he uses condensers blended with dynamics, like a 57 or something, I guess, but blended with, he had a certain condenser he really liked on guitar cabs. And he was kind of a hard rock metal guy, you know, for sure. And he liked condensers on. And so I think for rock, I really like the Royers and stuff, but they're a little slower and they're a little darker, and it can be a very nice sound blended with a 57. But I'm actually finding these days I'm kind of liking a condenser blended with a 57. So I go through phases, you know. But and of course you can do all three, blend three together. Why not? Or you can just get it with one sound, which is kind of what I did. If you listen to that video that I did on the Audio Technica mic, you'll hear that somebody mentioned this sounds like a good old school recording, they said in the comments, and I agree. And it's like one mic. There's something about getting the sound with one mic. And the thing with the Audio Technica is it sounds like you could go anywhere with it, EQ wise. Like you could, oh, I want some more mids, I want to put a bit of that 57 thing into the sound via EQ. Well, you could do that easily, but it just sounds like a great big awesome representation of what that guitar amp sounds like through the cabinet. One mic, very, you know, you don't get any phase weirdness stuff because you're just using one mic, and it's just very direct and in your face. So you can hear it. If you haven't, check out the video if you haven't seen it and tell me what you think. What do I think about Nash guitars? Don't know much about them. I've had a lot of friends with them over the years. You know, pretty cool. My friend Greg had a Telly that was nice. The aging never looked exactly right to me, but that's just me. Sometimes it's like over the top and looks a little like overdone, you know, but yeah. But nice guitars, I think, you know, they seem pretty well made. People that have them seem to like them. So that's just the only thing. If I got one, I'd say, hey, can you make it not with too much aging? Just a little light on that side, you know. Keith's got amazing guitar player. I've never met him, but I'd love to meet him. I hear he's a really good guy. I know I think he lives in California. I think he's in San Diego somewhere. So maybe one of these days I'll get to meet him. I hope so. I'd love to meet Brian too. I mean, I love these guys, you know, Canadians. Come on. Their music and their legacies. How do you approach an amp simulator such as a Helix or similar? It's a good question. Broadly, when you say that, the first thing that comes to mind is I try and limit my choices on them. So how do I approach them? I approach them like, I'm not going to listen to every single amp model in here. I'm going to find the ones that do the things that I need and then limit myself to those. So limit myself to the speaker types, cabinet styles, you know, as well as the amp types that I think I need for my sounds, and not get lost in a sea of trying different things. So that's one way I approach them. So like when I was setting up a Helix for instance, to be my backup in Japan for my main rig, I selected the Lone Star Channel 1, and they call it something else, but you know, Boogie Lone Star. It was like a nice sounding sort of Fendery clean for my clean sounds. And then for my dirty sound, the BE 100, because that's fairly close to the way a PT 100 dirty sounds. And so I picked those two, my Fendery clean, my Marshall drive, and then I added the same IR to all my presets, which was a 212 Sir PT signature cabinet with a Celestion G12H creamback. Yeah. And I think I just picked the dark 57 position. And why did I do that? Because that was what was on my real rig. And so, you know, my real cabinets were those actual cabinets with those speakers with a 57 on each cabinet. That's what we had on that tour. So I selected the same thing in the modeling world. And lo and behold, when I set up all the presets, I've got kind of in my rig, my main touring rig, I always have clean to dirty, like 5 sounds in my first bank. So clean, a little bit edgy with a pedal still on my clean channel, a little bit edgier with a pedal still on my clean channel, dirty rhythm, and then a lead sound, like 5 sounds like that, and then maybe an acoustic preset at the end that goes out of DI. So those are like my main food groups, and I end up using those for like 60% of the show or something like that, and then the other 40% would be specific presets for time delays and things like that. But anyways, having those sounds, I can get through a show pretty much no problem. So in the Helix, I set up the same thing, 5 sounds, and I tried to match as close as I could to my real rig. And when I went and stood out in the arena, and my tech AB'd between I had a wireless, you know, I could play out in the arena, and then he would AB between the Helix and then the real rig. And when you're standing out listening to the PA, it was like, it's very, very, very close, you know. So that's the way I approach it. I limit, you know, myself to, and then I don't get overwhelmed, I find. Yeah. CA PT 100, an original, I assume. I'm wondering if you can tell me something about that amp. Well, the amp would have started out as a Classic Plus. That's the way the design, that's what it evolved from. The Sir CAA Classic, or CAA Custom Audio Amps Classic Plus. And then John just tweaked it to my liking. So it's really not that much different, but we may have leaned out the low end a little bit and done a few different things. It's been a minute. I still have one, but it's been a minute since I played through the old original version. Some guys like them even more than the newer one. I believe Reb Beach is one that he really likes, the old CAA version of the PT 100. He has used the other ones new, but it's a little different. We made the new one a little more vintage Marshall. The filtering, the transformer, you know, things changed a little bit. And so if for metal, many times. I mean, it's got a little bigger bottom on channel 2 than the newer version. It's got the gain boost in it, the tube gain boost, as opposed to the MOSFET boost in the front end. So it's it's like a tube gain boost that's down in the circuit. It's not in front of the amp. It's like down in the chain. So it's quiet. It's relatively quiet for adding gain. Long story short, yeah, just EQ it. Like, you know, you probably want to scoop some mids, have the bass on at least 5 or something like that. Experiment whether or not you want the bright on. But there is especially if you use the channel 3 with the gain boost on, there's a shit ton of gain in that amp. So there's no reason why you can't play metal with it. There's a WOMP on the back, the WOMP control, which is different than a depth. So experiment with that. I don't know if we had a feedback circuit in the original, did we? Maybe we did. Yeah, we did. We had the feedback control. You probably want to run that at least half the negative feedback. But if you want to warm it up and make it a little more vintage or a little softer around the edges, a little more Bogner, actually, you could take that feedback control and turn it down. If you want it to be open and real punchy, turn it up. Hopefully that's helpful. Brooks is there in the super chat. Thanks, buddy. You guys, your super chats today. Brooks, you did it twice. What are you doing? You don't got to do that. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You guys are too kind. I guess I should go soon. It's 2:08. I've been here for 2 hours and 25 minutes. Whoa, today was fun, though. I had a lot of fun. Josh Smith had an interview with Ian Thornley. I haven't seen that yet. Wow. Josh is playing in my hometown today. Not my hometown. My current place of residence, Pasadena. He's playing a gig out there. Maybe I'll try and go. I think it's relatively early, though. I don't know if I can make it in time, but it would be cool to see. So maybe I'll try and make it. Any thoughts on a Mesa Boogie Fillmore 50? Folks seem to like that amp. Seems like a more basic, right, Fendery style. I haven't tried it, so I'm not sure. Not sure. Braxall, if I get the power station, would it sound as good as cranking up the amp? And do you think I could get a good capture with the quad Cortex? Yeah, you can get a good capture with a quad Cortex for sure. It doesn't sound exactly the same, but it's really, really nice. You know, it's great for doing that. Getting a good representation of what an amp sounds like, real loud. Yes, it sounds great cranking the amp. I mean, you're not getting quite the, I'll put it to you this way. A power station, if you crank up the power station so that you volume match it to the bypass sound. So there's a bypass switch on a power station. So you got your old Marshall 100 watt. You plug into the power station, you go through to the cabinet. Now you bypass. You listen, the Marshall's roaring out of the cabinet with the thing bypass. It's absolutely killing with volume, but it's awesome. Now you flip on the bypass switch, you go to operate, and then you turn up the power station to the point where it's at the same volume match it to the, right? Now flip the bypass. One position, you're completely loading down the amplifier and reamping. And in the other position, you're bypassing the unit completely. If you do that, I think you will agree that it's so damn close that if there's a difference, it's like it's splitting hairs. It's so good. And that's when you run the switches in the middle on the power station. So run them in the middle position, the two switches. You can pretty much turn the presence and depth off and then just volume match. And you'll hear that it sounds with most amps. So one amp I tried where it wasn't doing that. It sounded brighter with the power station. And we've sort of torn our hair out trying to figure out why that is. But in all of my amps, it doesn't do that. With everything I've got in here, it sounds identical. Pretty much identical. I mean, close as, whatever, because it's Fletcher Munson. Now you're going to turn down the power station, and that's going to affect the way you hear and things. But to know that the volume match tone is the same, that's when I go, all right, this thing is doing its job. Now you bring down the output out of the power station. And just trust me, you will enjoy the hell out of your Marshall. Plus, you can do a thing that you were never able to do before, which is put effects in the loop. And then you can get a nice post delay or some pitch stuff or reverb or whatever you want. It's really makes old amps super usable and fun, Thanks, Mr. Thorn. Very informative. Thank you, good sir. Craig, appreciate it. How to make the Kemper profiler sound better? Do you have some specific advice? I don't know. I mean, define what's wrong, maybe. What do you hear? I mean, it really depends how you're using it. If you're using it into guitar cabs with a powered Kemper, if you're using it direct. One thing you might want to experiment with, because it's a massive thing is the IRs. So like to use direct head profiles and then add the IR of choice and not have baked into the Kemper profile the, you know, cabinet and microphone choice that somebody used that day when they made that profile, right? If it's just a direct head profile, I find many times adding an IR that's a York or like a really great IR can totally change the sound, you know, of, you know, so all things considered, if you're not digging things, but you're using full studio captures or profiles, right? They call them profiles with the Kemper. If you're using a full studio profile, consider trying to maybe use a profile of the same amp, if they have them wherever you got them from, that is just the head, raw, with no speaker cabs, no mics, and then add an IR from another company. And that might improve, you know, depending on what you want to hear. What do you think about moving the volume knob down to where the first tone knob is on a Strat? Sure. I mean, it's kind of like what Eddie did, right? It's like volume knobs down lower. Sure. Just put one tone knob on the whole guitar, you know, and have a volume and tone. That's kind of what my Green Sir is, or what my PT is, really, although the volume knob is relatively close on my PT still. But, you know, you got a volume and a tone instead of a volume and 2 tones. Yeah, you could totally do that. Yeah. What's this one? I watched Tim Pierce talking about his rig and realized I had a lot of the gear or equivalent, so I had to build an ISO cab, but it is fun having an ISO cab, you know, so that you can mic and then listen through studio monitors, not kill your ears and stuff, you know. That said, it's great getting in the room with a cab like I did on the Trainwreck video. It's hard to beat, but you can't do that all the time. You know, can't do it all the time. This is interesting. My niece shirt, trying to learn Breakdown by Tom Petty. I cannot learn play the chords and sing. That's a hard one. So I think about that. It's all right if you love me. It's all right if you don't. I'm not afraid of you running away, babe. I like the feeling you own. Right? The way to do it so that you can do that is practice the 2 parts separately so that you can play them perfectly, okay, independent of one another. Yeah, it's an easy guitar part, so it's not going to be that hard to get the guitar. But now practice the vocal. Remember the words, remember the phrase, and get it. Now do it very, very slowly. It's all right if you love me. It's all right. Right there's a weird, you know, the syncopation of the guitar compared to the vocal is where you're probably running into trouble. Okay, so doing them at the same time, you're going to find where the crossover is, where you're supposed to hit a guitar attack or do a vocal attack, and it's screwing you up. Just work that one area, you know, and figure out what it is. And by dialing in the vocal first, get really knowing the words, really knowing the phrasing, and really knowing the guitar part. Now put them together, play it very slowly, and figure out where that crossover is screwing you up. And then you just focus on it. And I don't know any other way than to say, by kind of micro analyze. It's like a fast guitar riff where you can play a lot of the solo, but then there's one riff that keeps bugging you up. You don't need to practice the whole solo. Just practice that one little part slowly, you know, until you get it. And now it becomes, and now put it into the whole phrase. So my friend Al recommended that to me years ago. Learn each part separate and then put them together and figure out where that one little thing that's screwing you up is. That's the best advice I can give. You know, great song. DD8 or DD3T or DD200 suggestions on a carbon copy. Well, a DD8 is going to be a small, you know, not much bigger than your carbon copy, but very full featured, and you'll be able to get a lot of the sounds. Carbon copy, I mean, analog, it's a great thing, and it's unique, and it's got a vibe to it for sure. It's a lo-fi carbon copy thing, or lo-fi analog delay, I should say, the carbon copy. DD3T, is that just a DD3 with a tap? DD3 is a very bright, kind of straight up digital play. Cool, but does that one thing. Carbon copy, very dark, opposite in comparison, you know. And DD200, now we're talking about a bigger box that does a lot of stuff. So how much variation do you want? You know, how much variety do you need? Do you want a brighter delay, and that's all you need? Do you want a jack of all trades? DDA, that kind of does that. But you want a programmable. Now we're talking about the DD200. Just look at your needs, and you'll answer kind of your own question about that, I think. You know, Zach in the super chat as well. Thank you, my friend. You guys too kind. Peter Evans. Hey, Pete, great tea-based show today. Thank you. Videos this week for the Tea Coffee Fund and your recovery. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I'll be all right. I'm going to get through this thing. I'm going to juice it this week, I think. And so next week I will have lost a few pounds when I see you here, which I could stand to do. 1987, this pedal. I'm going to try and get this one done this week, as well as I've got a VS Audio, a brown face deluxe sort of pedal video to do. I got to do the wrap up with Dave for the pickup video, the Eddie Van Halen pickup video. So we're going to shoot that real quick, try and get him locked down at some point this week, where we can, maybe we'll have a tequila or something, sit around, talk about the pickups. I'm excited to do that. Actually, I want to sit there and gab that stuff with him. I've got also, I've still got to do this Overloud THU video, and that's just one that it's just getting into plugins and learning them, the learning curve and stuff. I just have to commit to doing it and getting it done. So that's a plugin one I got to do. Oh, my Apogee plugin video. I want to make a video about these Apogee plugins. I'm going to start with their Symphony channel strip. That sounds so good. It's just a great, simple, awesome, kind of very intuitive, fast way to get a great sound on bass or acoustic guitar, electric guitar. It's a nice channel strip plugin with simple compression, EQ, and a drive control with a great sounding kind of harmonic, you know, flat out distortion if you turn it up high enough, but just nice for fattening things and stuff. So I'm going to show you guys that in a video. So that stuff be coming this week. And did you ever get in touch with Seymour? You know, I sent him an email. Somebody on here said that I should contact him, and they gave me his contact info and stuff, and I never heard back from him. So I sent him I think an email and maybe some sort of message somewhere else. I can't even remember if it was a text, or I think I might have texted him. Never wrote me back, so I don't want to bother him. So I just did it once, you know. So Malcolm Stewart says, I want a Plexi that does the Van Halen thing, but I'm not sold on anything I've looked into so far. What advice can you give me? Well, I mean, the straight up ticket is the SL68 or 67. It's got the Variac built in. It's got the right circuit with the fat cap and all that stuff. So that's what you want, you know. My friend John Fields would say, don't fuck around. Just get the SL68. Other amps are all great that you mentioned too. I mean, you know, there's lots of ways to get close, but nothing that does the Variac, you know, if you want the 90 volts. I mean, that's if I go for that sound, I plug into that thing, I put everything on 10, I put it on the Variac sound, and now I dial in everything else, you know, but that's the starter for that. It's the right spec. So yeah. I should probably split pretty quick here, because like I say, I've got a long time, but we've still got 434 people online. You guys are amazing. The show's so nice. Thank you. Speaking of live playing, would you talk about how you set up your HX Stomp for backup? On my HX Stomp, I literally had two sounds, clean and dirty. That was it. And I set up just a nice clean sound and then a crunch that I could maybe roll down to get a rhythm, and then maybe a little more gain than I would have for my rhythm sound normally. But I thought if I go to this sound, I might have to use it for solos too. So, but literally that's how I did it. It was, and I think I used the same amp models I mentioned earlier, the Lone Star amp channel 1, and the BE100 for the dirty, and with a couple Celestion IRs of my signature cabinet, you know, and I just had those two. That was it. And yeah, I was lying there on the floor, lines running to the PA already and into my in-ears if I needed it, into the side fill as well, and with a cable plugged into it, ready to go. So I could just pick up the cable, plug it into my guitar, and I would have a clean and a dirty sound. Boom, you know. Easy, make it easy, you know. Because if you're in that situation where your whole shit goes down, like your rig is like fried and you're like, ah, you don't want to think about it very much. Plug in. Okay, clean dirt. Okay. Can't believe my stupid amp, but hey, I'm rocking. Got this little Line 6 box. You know, that's the way I think about it. Like, make it easy on myself at that point. You know, the world's gone to hell. Let's keep it simple. Malcolm Stewart says, Sir SL are getting hard to find. I only see 250 watt models on Reverb, but that's the be all end all, the 68. Yeah, the 50 watt model is great though too. I did a video of it and I played some Van Halen in it, so you can listen and see. The 50 watt's cool too. It's just a little bit different, you know, little, you know, the things that you would, you know, a little more compression and stuff, but it's not bad. The SL67 is a wonderful sounding amp. But yeah, it is. That's the, I mean, it's just great straight up. It's the right circuit. It's bulletproof. You don't have to do anything to it. Pretty much the thing is with everything else, you got to do things because it's not going to have the fat cap on V2. It doesn't have the Variac. You know, so those are two fairly important things, I think, that lend, you know, make that amp sound the way that it does. So, you know, you're gonna want to have to, you're gonna right away, you got to get a Variac, you know, bias if the Variac's one more thing to carry around. Then you got to mod the amp with the, you know, the cap and stuff like that. And why, you know, you can just get an amazing handmade amp that's gonna, you know, kill it all day long. So the prices I've seen lately for 80s era Marshalls makes me want to just buy a Sir. Yeah, they're getting crazy. Like a JCM 800s, you know, 10 years ago, you buy JCM 800 all day long, or even a JMP for $900, you know, now they're like stupid. It's like $2,500, $3,000, you know, at least $2,000 or $2,500. It seems like for JCM 800s, right? Isn't that what they are? I think nutty. So thanks, Pete. I'll just go for it. Yeah, find one. You're not going to regret it. I mean, it's deadly. And hey, it's got a great master volume on the back. I wouldn't use it down to bed. You can use it down to bedroom volume. It's okay. But, you know, it's a post-phase inverter master. Those affect the presence circuit and the negative feedback. So it changes the sound of the amp a little bit. But up loud, it's great. I mean, you can take it anywhere from ripping loud 100 watts, you know. Now you use the Variac and that brings it down to probably 60 or 50 watts or something at that point because you've got the lower voltages. But now if you bring down the post phase inverter master down to like 8 or 7, it's perfect club volume with a band. Not too loud. I used it at a club that was almost like a sit down supper kind of bar place a while ago, and I had it on 8 or so on the master and on the 90 volt setting, and it just sounded perfect, you know, at that. So it's you're gonna love it, I think, you know, if that's what you want. You know, it's a wild sound. The plexi thing isn't always the easiest, you know, sound to control and all that. It's kind of a, you know, uh-oh, there's something I got to deal with. Let's get a text. Sorry, I better split and go around and deal with that. Just a little business thing. How often has your road rig actually gone down? John asked. Not often. A handful of times. You know, I've had things like where tubes went bad and the volume all of a sudden starts swelling up and down. I've had problem with like a rack line mixer thing that I had to do my wet dry thing, and like a solder joint went bad on it, and all of a sudden one side wasn't working. I've had tubes, luckily mostly only at sound check. It's like I've had a 12AX7, like the amp just quit working, and then okay, what's going on? And then, you know, like one 12AX7 went bad between one gig to the next gig, you know, and took out the whole, you know, there's no sound. We found it and replaced it. Oh, that's working. I've had power tubes one time, you know, red plate, and replaced those, all that kind of stuff. A couple other things, you know, but other than that, that's it. So, okay. I should split you guys. Hey, this has been awesome. And you guys with your super chats are amazing. I really appreciate it. Everybody have a great week, and I'll see you next week. And there's Ben Coombs saying we can discuss tonight. Check out Ben's show, my faithful moderator. He's up there in Canada having a good time on the east side of Canada. And yeah. Braxall
asking about the reactive load, something we were talking about earlier, is the cheaper reactive load good enough, or do I need the more expensive one? The more expensive one has the IRs built in. So if you plan on doing the IRs in the computer, you could just use the other one, but having the IRs in the box along with a headphone amp is pretty nice, because you can play your old Marshall with headphones on, just literally like at night, and you get the speaker sim coming. I would get the, you know, it's not that much more, and you've got the option of just plugging right into a powered speaker, for that matter, you know, a studio monitor straight in, and you can have your ripping amp. You'll like it, trust me. Not having to do the IRs in the computer, or you can do them in the computer still on the more expensive one if you want to get, you know, creative with things like room mics and a Celestion plug-in or different things. You can do that. Just gives you options that are nice to have, I think, for like the price of a pedal more, you know. Somebody's asking about classic gas at my recommendation. I've been jonesing for a nitro finish style Strat style. What do I recommend? You know, if you want to get something different than a Sur, I would probably just get a Fender, to be honest. You know, if you're looking for, you know, there's so many of them out there, you probably find used. Find, you know, one of those Wildwood, you know, spec relic 60 Strats or something that seems to speak to you. They're nice guitars, you know, too. If you just feel like trying something else. I'm a Sur man, you know, I love them, but Fender makes some nice guitars too. So I don't think you need to. There's something about too the relic thing. If you're going relic, it's like you want it to kind of look like a old Strat, and it says Fender on the headstock, and it's like, you know, it's just like pretty cool. There's other stuff out there too. There's the, you know, exotic and different guitars, different brands, but I honestly, you know, the Fender probably, you know. All right, guys. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you all, and I'll see you next week. Have a terrific one. Take care, everybody.